Hi, welcome to This Week in Flat Earth. I'm Lori Frary, and with me this week is Lawrence Wright and Jonathan the Morgile and Kristen Wolf, and possibly our special guest later on may be Matt Powerland if he manages to have an ability to get on. So looking forward to that if he can make it. So welcome everyone back. This is episode 9, and we're glad you joined us again. We have set up for 3 hours, and as soon as the show is over, it will archive and be playable again. So if you can't hang with us for 3 hours, you can watch the rest of it later. So to get started this week, the biggest thing we like to do from week to week is to try to keep current and relevant as far as what's going on in the Flat Earth community and from within the community, but also worldwide, whether, you know, what things are happening in the Flat Earth as far as media attention. We talked about that last week, that we've made a couple of minor media articles, and of course, as expected, they played us as being stupid, crazy, and gullible. And but this week we have a little different twist with a non-friend, Thomas Sheridan, who made a video on New Year's Eve, I believe, and was in a very big hurry to get this out so that he could put out this dire warning to the world, to let them know that if you are a flat earther, and if you belong to a group or have a YouTube channel with flat earth YouTube videos on it, that you need to take it all down right now, because you're being used by the CIA or some PSYOP group who is making you out to gaslighting you, and at some point you will be used for some sort of terrorist act. You won't have any control over yourselves at all. You will completely just be at the whim of whoever is running the PSYOP. And interestingly enough, nothing could be further from the truth, but I will tell you the name of the video, and it's interesting because my channel is called flatearthconspiracy.com, and his video is called Flat Earth Conspiracy - The Truth That Dare Not Speak Its Name. And interestingly enough, as of right now, he has 5,247 views on this video. He has 189 thumbs up and 261 thumbs down. And the comments have been disabled. So he doesn't want to hear from anyone who is either flat earth or not, obviously. And there is a place, Thomas Sheridan official blog maybe below me or something, I don't know, .blogspot.ie, where you can go and make your comments. Apparently I'm not interested in making any to him because he's nothing but a big blowhard and a liar, and has apparently been more interested in making stuff up and being the first one to put this out there. Oh my God, this is dire warning. So I invite you to go and watch his video, because obviously he doesn't have very many views. So you can help him get a few more views. But I wanted to hear other you guys' input, for those of you that have seen it, what you thought about it. Lawrence, did you see some of it?
Yeah, I managed to watch 10 minutes of it, and he was getting on my tits, so I had to turn it off. But one thing I did pick up on that he said was that he reckoned 25% of the truth community, all of it, are now flat earthers. So I'm wondering where he got that percentage from. Maybe he's been looking at his own traffic, his own followers, and maybe he's lost 25% of them who've become flat earthers, and that's where he's got the figure from. But the guy hasn't done any research. He's picked up a few things at random, but doesn't give you the opportunity to counter with it. He's done no research. He's just ignorant, an ignorant Irishman. He's probably upset that the attention is going away from things that he's interested in, and same with all the other groups. They're all losing traffic to flat Earth, and 2016 will probably see it swing even further. And because that's once you're on flat Earth, all the other stuff take a back seat, and you're not going to spend a great deal of time looking at chemtrails and stuff like that anymore when this is on the horizon, because there's something happening every week that's shocking or new, or somebody makes some discovery, and it soon spreads. As soon as somebody finds something out, everybody knows about it. So that's probably what I think. I think he's just fed up of losing attention. So and of course he gets more attention for this than what he probably does for his ordinary videos, because it's us flat earthers who are listening to what he's saying. But I wouldn't.
That was what I got out of it too. That it was all about getting attention. Jonathan, what do you think? Are we about to be weaponized, and we have no of our own mind control left? That we're just completely gullible little terrorists being able to be marched down the street?
No, absolutely not. Let's face it, we were all indoctrinated in this great deception, our entire lives. And so we know how powerful it is. And for somebody that's, really a big fan, and I don't know the guy, but I would assume he's a big fan of space conspiracies and Roswell and that sort of thing. And so when you take that away from a person, it's like they lash out, and what he's actually doing is he's labeling us what he is, in a sort of ironic way, because the spinning globe Earth is actually the psyop, and the flat stationary Earth, or at least debunking the spinning globe Earth, is the truth. And so basically he's just labeling us what he is, which is a paranoid, delusional, ironic, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, absolutely not. I don't think there's any. In fact, I think flat earthers are probably the furthest thing from terrorists, because we understand that the Earth is at peace, nature's in balance, and it's a lot safer place than we ever thought. And I think that's personally why I like to spread the word, because the spinning globe Earth is such a dangerous place, right?
Yeah, it could fly off any second, or not.
Or we could run into an errant asteroid or comet. It's never going to happen.
Right. Or some space junk could crash on your head.
Right.
So Kristen, I don't know if she's got her mic muted. Kristen, did you watch the video, or do you have any comments on it?
I watched it a couple times. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. I was just messing with the controls to make sure I understand how this works this time, because I want to keep my camera off to save my computer from overheating if I can when I'm not speaking, and also turn my camera off, mute it and turn the camera off both, so I can save, we'll see, the computer from having troubles. I watched it a couple of times, and it's possible he really believes what he's saying. I don't know. But other than that, I mean, could there be any truth at all to any of it, as far as what the plans might be to make us look like terrorists, even though we're not? Sure. We've seen these movements be co-opted before in all kinds of ways, and we're seeing it happen here. So I would not put it past the media to try to steer it that way, the narrative. Let's just go ahead and top it off. We're already crazy. Let's add terrorist tendencies to the list, or terrorist motivations or agendas, whatever they want to say about us. And I guess that's what we're being faced with. It's whatever they want to say, and they can. Whether Thomas Sheridan's being used to that end, I have no idea, but he is certainly helping to add to the pot of marginalized accusations, marginalization creating accusations. How do we say this? And so we have to just kind of brace ourselves, because if we were paying attention, we knew that this would be spun by the media in a negative fashion to some extent. However, at the same time, we have to realize that the media also responds to what they see happening in this movement. And that's exactly why I put out that post a week ago, really ringing the bell on that. How the media is already spinning this crazy is partly to do with how they're able to observe the movement already progressing as it has been. It's not just some idea they pulled out of their rabbit's hat, or whatever the saying would be. They didn't just come up with this out of thin. It's the narrative that they could see was taking hold in the movement all these months, as we all witnessed the conversation changing from the focus of this wonderful revelation everybody's having, to realize that Earth is actually absent of curvature and therefore provably flat. And all of a sudden it became, a conversation that became less and less about what makes the Earth actually flat. And now, we're just seeing more and more diversion tactics to steer this conversation away from the point. Now, be that media or whoever is doing it. Thomas Sheridan, again, I don't know how involved he is at any kind of top levels or what have you, or to be able to say what he's saying. I have no idea. So that all remains an unknown.
Well,
and all we can do is
look at it this way. This is the bottom line. We're not terrorists. We have no intention of being terrorists. We are probably some of the most free-thinking type people, and you have to be, in order to relieve your mind of all of your previous indoctrination and programming and everything else, and to be able to even integrate the flat Earth information into your mind. Okay, so that's one thing. Lawrence, you have two of you up there.
I know my connection went and then it came back.
Okay.
And
so also, this is another part of the issue that we all need to keep in mind. Okay, many of the people who are flat earthers, most of the people, almost all of the people who are flat earthers are just normal everyday people, and none of us are celebrities or important, well-known named people. And our opinions are our own, and our opinions apparently are just like everyone else's opinion. And so it appears that many flat earthers who come from the follower culture, which is then the classic situation with our culture, is, pop stars and movie stars and sports figures and so on and so forth. So a lot of flat earthers are waiting patiently for, or impatiently actually, for important people, and I have to do that, okay, celebrities to endorse the flat Earth concept. And while everybody's waiting for that, and it's not happening, there are getting to be a few more of these alternative news celebrities who are coming out against flat Earth, and for whatever reason, mostly because they haven't done any research whatsoever, or they've only done some superficial research. And so it's supposed to be a psychological disheartening, so to speak, to the flat earthers, that people who they're waiting to come online with us are not doing so. So there you go with that. And so anyway, I see that Math has joined us, and hello.
Hi.
Everybody, it's Math Powerlands. And
Hey,
what we're talking about, Matt, is we opened the segment, the show with Thomas Sheridan's Flat Earth um, video that he made on New Year's Eve and posted, and calling us all, gullible, and that we're being gaslighted and we're going to become CIA operative terrorists against our own will through mind control or some cult thing or whatever. I'm sure you watched the video. I sent you a link about it. And
Yeah.
what do you think?
What I think about it is that uh, this is how movements are hijacked, and I've been warning about this not because I have insider knowledge. Anybody who's got any kind of objectivist point of view on how to take over any kind of information can just watch what's happened with any movement in the last 10 years. So I've sat back and studied this as a political scientist, watching them come into how they're going to, whitewash. Am I still there?
Yeah.
You still there, man?
Yeah, whitewash 9/11, whitewash using 9/11 to have everybody psychologically with their eyes on the ground, not standing at tarmacs looking at planes take off and spray the sky. I watched them how they came into the Occupy movement, which is basically the first time white people have to be broke. Black people have been broke for quite a while, so and then how they had to control that. So the Arab Spring, and now to this. So you could see them and how they came into these movements, and anybody who might have been there who's with a megaphone, who's had a legitimate argument, suddenly these fake flakes, these flake gurus come in, or these experts come in, and they're assigned to the cause. And they come in through the mechanics of getting buddy with the real revolutionary, so they can have legitimacy with his or her audience, and then they turn the audience against that person, take over the movement. They have asset support and some sort of financing outside. You could use it for ISIS too. And then what happens is that now the media, when they need to address this, they address the fake revolution that drowned out the real revolution, and then that's the label for all the real researchers. And then we get pulled down the muck of speculation and radicalization, and this is the ploy to drown out any revolution or any formidable challenge to the status quo and the controllers of that status quo, or even exposing they're controlling the status quo, and picking on a particular corruption that's been perpetrated or fraud, and then they will weaponize their system, the establishment, against that movement that will challenge their authority, because authority has abused taxpayers' monies and is perpetrating fraud. And this is how they defend their fraud.
Right. So they start out one person at a time, one article at a time, quietly, soberly, somberly, nitpicking little things, and then a little bit harsher and a little bit bigger dig and a little bit stronger message, until, in this case, Thomas Sheridan started out his Flat Earth video with, telling people who have already begun doing research and have become flat earthers via having done that research. You don't just become a flat earther because it's trendy. I mean, obviously there's a few people that would do that because they're follower culture anyway.
We're in that phase.
Naturally, if you're a free thinker and you're whether you're a conspiracy theorist, realist, or whether you're just a critical thinker, you're going to go and try to debunk something, which is typically the first order.
Especially something as what should be laughable as the Earth being flat, right? Because they definitely brainwash it.
But then it turns out, once you do the work and try to prove it to yourself that it's a joke, you go, well, I'll be damned. It's not a joke after all.
You can't role play too far into this one.
Yeah, you can't.
Even if your intel assigned to there's three types of intel that are assigned here. And there's the slave spy, I call them. That's my slang for the community informant. And if you could look at certain people, like somebody I've noticed, and we see now a pattern, almost like union tactics, where boys show up with baseball bats. But the online equivalent I've noticed is that, personally with me, who's one of the first proponents out of the gate with this thing, and I stick to facts. I don't go into speculation. If I do go into speculation, I qualify my next statement as theory, speculation, or wild imagination. And this is important to categorize what you're about to say as this is knowing, this is theory, this is belief. And then how is it theory, and what knowings or knowledge or facts are you citing to formalize this theory as having some potential force in an argument, in the debate? And then there's the paid asset who's doing recon, the sleeper cell, friend on your page, blowing sunshine up your ass, getting as much intel as they can, because the enemy's not going to be coming at you with armies across the ocean going, we're coming. It's not the way it works anymore here. Okay, when the establishment is challenged, it is from within. You become the revolution. I only realized recently what the heck that means. If you can't beat them, join them. I used to listen to that expression or hear that expression and go, why would I want to join somebody I was trying to beat? I didn't get it.
Right. Yeah, I get it.
You become the revolution. You
do much more from within inside the camp than you can.
You can't beat them, you join them. It's
coming at them with a gun.
Yeah, that's what that expression means. And then you have cults of personality, like we discussed before during an image control, that are, I mean, you could almost see like PR assets to the alphabet agencies, because they don't have the alphabet agencies involved in this. They're fighting ISIS. They're listening to people online and they're taking notes, but in a compartmentalized fashion. Who here is a threat to the government? I certainly don't want this movement to be seen as a threat to the government. The government is there to uphold the laws of the land, minority rights in the U.S., because it's a republic, not a democracy, and it's a beautiful piece of legislation, the American Constitution. And so the government is there to protect that. That's the job of the government. Right. There could be individuals in the government who are abusing public funds, their departments, who are section heads and have allegiances to other fraternities or other masters or bribes. I mean, there's many cases, even in Montreal right now, where all sorts of public officials are being exposed for taking, bribes over 40, 50 years. The mayor of Montreal. And I mean, bribes happen. People are exploited.
And we're not dealing with those people. If we're dealing with anyone, we're dealing with covert groups. We're dealing with
this is where they hire
secret groups.
This is where they will hire people within. Well, they'll have people within the government who are using departments and compartments of the government, and all this beautiful information from the NSA to find out who's saying what. They'll take that information as leads, like when you get a lead for an insurance policy, you get a whole metric of demographics. Well, they do that with the NSA. They take this information illegally, and then they'll go to a black covert operation, sell that information so that they can start mining the footprint in social media of certain individuals that are a threat to the people in the government who are abusing the government so they can benefit themselves materialistically or ideologically without all these departments and compartments within the government even knowing. And so these are PR firms that have hired cults of personalities who then have assets coming in on online chats who are there right away when anything I'm posted. I've noticed this past pattern is if I post anything, they attack me. I don't know who they are. They've never showed up before. They're there like that. And then they're on any time. They're like 24/7 on their computer. And I asked them,
we're all finding that.
If you post me on any other Facebook page, do you get attacked? And they say yes. So this is a union tactics.
Right.
Well, one thing that I would wanted
Oh,
to
go
point
ahead.
out was that, the government itself doesn't do a lot of the information gathering. They have private corporations, private companies doing the information gathering, and the government just buys it. But they can label you as a domestic terrorist for anything. They can label you as a domestic terrorist for being pro-constitutionalist, or if you grow your own vegetables, or if you're just simply independent from the standard grid. I mean, they can label you a domestic terrorist for just about
But
anything.
there's semantics that it's all about wordsmithing. So I mean, everything is um, it's even the size of your font. I mean, if you're talking in capital letters legally, I mean, people are annoyed when I do that. But that's how sure I am with my shots. I'm not going in here speculating or making a poppycock. I'm sticking. Be impeccable at your word, because you have nobody here. I mean, you have the Muslim faith can have clerics come out and denounce the behavior of certain radical Muslims, because we know there's a religion called Islam, and it has fused with certain governments in the Middle East, and we do business with them. So it's a formidable belief around the world, with clerics and pundits and blah blah, and a history and a culture. Well, with flat Earth, we don't have any credibility here, so it's very vulnerable. Okay, so there's no formal recognition of this. There's no university body or scientific body behind this. This is super alternative political science, or even research, at a level of existentialism, or even in private investigation on fraud, because the curvature formula does not work. So stick to the facts. If you're going to start looking to start a fight like these guys in Oregon right now, which I believe is fake, is staged, and another drill to move policy, where in the event people start taking the land to grow food, they can't, because of the Blundies in Oregon right now who've taken hostage. I don't know if you know this. This is real time right now. There's a militia in Oregon that have taken over federal land. So this is the idea of familiarizing the public, I believe, through drill, but you don't know it's drill. It's simulation. They call it a real-time event, that domestic terrorism is here now. And they're part of the truther community. And in the truther community, there's a bug raging through it, that the Earth isn't a ball.
Well, that
Sheridan's right.
obviously have to
Sheridan is
tie it
right,
all
though.
together, right? They have to intermingle all this stuff, because all of their shit's intermingled. All of their lies are intermingled, and you can't take out one lie without the other lie, being pulled with it. And so, flat Earth, for example, has its finger on the pulse of all these other parts, because most of the people who are in the flat Earth community, in the movement, came from having been somewhat, to some degree, involved in some other form of truth movement, 9/11 or chemtrails or whatever. And so they realized that all these things are inextricably tied, and so they're all tied in with the flat Earth. You can't just talk about flat Earth. I've tried it in the groups to limit the conversation to just flat Earth topics. It's not really possible, because religion gets brought in, and government gets brought in, and all of the other, truth aspects all get brought in. Okay, changing gears for a minute. Let's go to another topic. We visit this topic from week to week, and it gets us friends and it gets us enemies every week. Okay, and we're not here to make friends, and we're not here to make enemies. What we're here to do is to brainstorm and dialogue and have a conversation about things that are contentious with us. Okay, they may not be contentious with other people. Things like whether there's a dome or an infinite plane, which turned into this, either or. You have to pick one, which is bullshit in and of itself. Okay. Things like, is this map correct? Is this projection correct? Is the information that we use to create those maps and projections correct? So on a week-to-week basis, we revisit, things like, is there a dome? And if there is a dome, where's the dome? And how, what are the boundaries of the dome? Or is there no dome? Is there just a ceiling over our heads, separating us from whatever else is above the ceiling? And on and on and on it goes. So since, you're here, Kristen's here, and then us three who are on the show every week, I want to go there again. And I know there's probably some groans from those who are sitting at home going, oh my God, here she goes with the dome again. It's not just that. It's that I want to continue the dialogue, because beyond the most obvious proofs of flat Earth, like the lack of curvature, and many of the other more provable things, more evident, observable things, this dome thing got inserted in there somewhere. And Matthew, hold on just for a minute, because I'm going to let you take off on it. But I want Kristen, who I hope is listening, she's got her mic muted. I want Kristen to bring up to date briefly what you're working on with regards to the concept of the dome/map, whatever. You there?
Okay. Well, it's been holiday time, and so I'm doing what I can to keep up with these tracks of research. If people visit my page, which I didn't get to say the name of last time, but it's the Flat Earth Inquiry Show on Facebook, you'll find the recent posts I'm working on. And the way I do my posts is that it reflects what I'm working on in my research. That's the whole thing about my page, is I'm presenting this as I am finding it out myself, step by step, and continuing this inquiry on my own journey, and asking other people to just join me in this. And that's been the whole goal of it, is to get people to keep asking questions. And so this is why, again, I've been unresolved with this AE map, as far as being totally settled with telling people this is the reality we're working with, in the absence of what seems like enough evidence yet for me to be certain. And so I'm very, very clear when it, again, as Matthew pointed out, when we're talking about speculation or what we know or what is a belief. He put that so well. And this is what has to be happening here, because it's crazy how much people are just throwing around their beliefs as fact in general. This has been very eye-opening on Facebook. My goodness, I had no idea what I was in for. I naively started a Facebook page for the Flat Earth, and honestly didn't bother to do a search before I started it for how many other Flat Earth groups and communities already were there, because I honestly just wanted to do this experiment, to have a place to compile my findings and see if anyone else might be interested in what I was finding. It's really that simple. And people can conjecture about me what they will, where the hell I've come from out of nowhere, and whether my name is real, and all the rest of it. They can decide that I've joined someone's agency by now talking to certain people. This is insanity, but they can think what they want, and they will. I'm a free person doing this on my own. I have no help. I've started this community page and grown it for the last pushing 5 months as the only administrator of it, the only person doing posts. So it is what it is. I've made the best of it, and it's done quite well, considering I haven't had a group page to support it. I haven't had videos yet to support it. It's just the result of hard work. Simple as that. And it's grown at the rate you can expect a community page grow that is showing good work for the amount of time it's been up there. And in any case, the work I'm putting out lately is, again, questioning further this map and why we need to maybe consider just looking at the Mercator map as a simple basis of comparison. I will not be pushing a model today, tomorrow, or anytime soon. I haven't yet. That's my commitment because, again, without enough conclusive evidence that I'm comfortable with to be able to present a model, I simply won't be going there. I won't be doing that. And I've been very clear from the beginning. So the square model.
Can I just say one thing about you're not speculating on the model? I think that's very wise, because the situation with the security perimeter around us and above us, it's akin to a bunch of pigs in a pen trying to say, you know, the pasture in the field beyond the fence or beyond the barn they can't see is made out of jelly. And the other one says it's made out of song. And the other one says it's out of marshmallows. I mean, we're kind of handicapped here. We can't cross. We can't apply the scientific method. So I find that the fact that we can't apply the scientific method because of the security perimeter above and across is the focus of the challenge. And then when we start getting to speculating, it's like we're kind of handicapped here. That's all I have to say about when we start trying to talk about the distances of things and the extent of geography.
That's very much why Kristen has been adamant, as well as Lawrence and I and some other people have been remained adamant, not to speculate, but maybe kind of a little bit. I mean, I've been called a gatekeeper, and I'm sure Kristen has too, as well as Lawrence, because we're asking people not to go there, because people are going there with, here's my model, it works, and here's how it works, and it looks very pretty and flashy and gorgeous, but then one person comes along and says, you know what, but though the sun doesn't actually do that. And they're like, no, you're just causing problems. You know, this works. You're just a problem, person, and you shouldn't limit my free speech. I have I have a right to I'm entitled to my opinion, and this is my opinion.
I want to be God.
And so on.
So sad.
So, go ahead, Kristen. Just to, I'm not trying to speed up what you're trying to say, but. What I would like for you to say is this is where I'm working and deal with it. I mean, isn't that really what you want to say? Just you people just deal with it because this is what I'm working on.
That's one way of putting it. What I'm trying to say is basically I'm still asking questions. I don't pretend to be doing anything more than that. The only thing I'm asserting is the basic proofs as far as what is established at this point, and I will stick to that approach as long as necessary until we have more conclusive evidence about these major points. And I'm again willing to just look at this Mercator map because I've discovered another thing about it that is very interesting. I haven't really delved into in depth yet the other. The person's work who free energy that we've spoken of a little bit, who has a square Earth model. I'm actually holding back. I decided to delve into reviewing all of his videos and really trying to wrap my brain around it because I already have certain distinct problems with his model. I will say that right now. And so before I get too entrenched in it, I'm looking to make the inquiry on my own without the influence of his having decided that he's got it figured out, because he very much is very certain, it would appear by how he presents it, that he's figured it out. And so again, that for me is a little pushing the line. But he made it clear in the first video I saw of his, as I referenced 2 weeks ago, the one about Coriolis effect. He points out in that video, he jumps around to some different things, but about the AE map being something that was inserted hundreds of years ago. And so, that planted a seed for me as well, that I couldn't just automatically trust this AE map out the gate. Where did it come from? How did it really hold up to reality? And right. So we have to, there is, again, an important thing about this AE map lends itself to the disk model that the Flat Earth Society turned it into, and now we see the domed disk that it's suddenly turned into when none of us agree.
Sphere,
Right.
and then it slowly becomes a sphere.
Right. Lawrence.
Yes, it becomes a half globe,
Yeah,
and
well,
it's just, it looks very much like it was a plan B from the beginning, because don't they always have a cover story? Don't they always have a plan B? And when this globe deception failed, which they knew that it might, all they've got to do is say, well, guess what, kids, there's a dome over you, so nothing really changes, and we couldn't admit it because, you know, they wouldn't let us admit it.
This is
You know,
spherism.
whatever they want to say.
This is
Okay,
spherism.
they can say that aliens.
They're
It
worshiping.
is. It's just a
sphere.
nothing changes. They don't have to admit to the land they're hiding. They don't have to admit to the resources. They don't have to talk about the other civilizations. All of these things we have evidence for existing, and I find it interesting. People will reject the idea of more land, trying to argue that we have no evidence any more than they have evidence for a dome, when that's preposterous. There is no end of evidence for more land. Why would we not accept readily the concept of more land? Why does it threaten us so much, some of us? And this is what I ask people to think about, is the deeply kind of psychological implications of these concepts and how it pulls at us. And I myself had to go through a day of kind of a big gulp when I first heard the concept of more land, and thinking, well, okay, now we're right back to this big unknown, and there might be other intelligent life. Just when I was starting to think, yeah, it's really cozy, doesn't it, that there's no outer space. We don't have to worry about aliens coming from some other planet and all these other things they've hung over us forever now as potentially possible with this. Is there life on other planet? Not.
Right.
And this is there's so many points to this, but you know, people argue about, oh, well, look, the other planets are spheres. Why wouldn't Earth be a sphere? Well, we should understand right out the gate, there's nothing similar about those so-called other planets and Earth, because hasn't the big question been forever? Was there ever life on them? Because from what we know about them so far, there's no indication that they ever really did support life. But then suddenly the narrative changes in recent years to, well, now we're starting to think that Mars could have had life. And of course, conveniently this year, suddenly they find water right before they bring out Matt Damon's
Nobody
a week later. Perfect time.
Nobody sees the
Okay.
images they
So-
provide.
Okay, so Lawrence, just
yeah. Well,
take off on what you've been finding out since last week about the map thing.
all right. Well, just before I do that, because this will interest Matthew.
Okay.
You know, the word Antarctica comes into it. Well, sometimes they leave the A on, and sometimes they take it off. So is it Antarctic or Antarctica? But whichever one you choose to call it, if you do a search on Google and type in webcam at Neumayer, that's Neumayer station.
Yeah.
That's a German research station in Antarctica. And if you don't look at the top page, move down about 4 pages, and you'll find a time lapse for 24 hours. And you can look at it in 10-minute segments. And what you'll see, you'll see this enormous sun rising up from the right side of the screen and vanishing off on the left. But it's an enormous sun, far bigger than ours, and it's an irregular shape. It's not a proper circle. It's it's like something somebody's painted. And then on the other side, there's this little tiny sun that comes from left to right and then vanishes off the page.
Yeah.
And then you can look at the other station at Casey, and in this case, the sun comes from the top, comes from right to left, and it starts at the top and moves down to the left-hand corner. And at the same time, this big black ball always comes in the frame, and they're saying some problem with the photography or the camera. They're so contrasting, and they have the sun at the high point 4 hours apart. And I'm starting to think that this sun at Neumayer is the sun for some parallel Earth that runs beyond Antarctica to support life there, because it's far too big and it's the wrong shape for ours. It's got to be somebody else's.
This historical record is
If you're watching now, just go and check this out because it'll freak you out. Type in Neumayer, Neumeier station webcam, and you can have a good look at it. The one at Casey's been cloudy for the past couple of days, so you won't see any suns coming down. But they re-upload it every couple of days, so if you keep an eye on it, you'll see some of this time lapse.
Yeah. Yeah.
But the other thing with the maps, and the big thing now, and thanks go out to Tiger Dan for starting this, but I think Tiger, if you're watching now, mate, I think you're digging yourself a bit of a hole with this one, because whichever way you turn on that, you're just going to run into more and more problems trying to plot, the continents and the airports on a round map. It just doesn't fit. I've looked at your latest one. And you've managed to get the Australian Sydney to Santiago to fit with reality, but in doing so, you've got the airport at Johannesburg more than twice as far away. It's about 14,000 miles away, when in reality it's about 200 or 300 miles closer to Australia than Santiago, Chile is.
So we say no planes.
Yeah, well, just 1 second, Matthew. What's going on? What Lawrence is talking about is we challenged Tiger Dan to make us a map that actually works. And what he's doing is he's taking all of the international airports locations and cross-referencing the locations from the time that it takes to fly from this one to this one, and then from this one to this one, and plotting those on a map so that the continents and the cities where they are fit the times that it takes to fly there and the route. So it's quite an undertaking, but he's running into all kinds of problems.
Well, the thing is, though, he's assuming an azimuthal equidistant matrix from the beginning, so we already know what the conclusion is going to look like. And I don't necessarily agree with automatically assuming it's an azimuthal equidistant type situation, because that's skewed by definition anyway. So I don't know. I don't think the North Pole, I don't think magnetic north is a single point. I think it's probably wrapped around a curve at the center.
Yeah, well, I've had a brief look at I've had a look at this 6 months ago, but I had a look on the Mercator map, and if you assume that you can go east-west and arrive back at your starting point, and people say, well, you can't do that, but we're talking about God or a creator, and if he could build the earth, then chances are he could build that sort of feature into it as well. But if you can assume that, then Santiago, Chile, and also Johannesburg to Sydney, they both near as damn it fit, or you could tweak it a little bit and you could get them to fit. The one that doesn't fit at the moment is the one that Tiger Dan did, was with the two airports in America, in Alaska and down in Florida. The one to Alaska is a good deal further away from London, as is the one in Orlando. It's probably twice as far. It's probably about 3,000 or 4,000 miles further away.
How come it's not using driving distance, at the pump? A car won't lie. And cruise ships, like the Queen Elizabeth leaving from the port of New York to London. Well,
you can see those, but they're plotted on the routes. You can go, if you're looking as though you're going to book a cruise, you can see the actual routes, and they're going east-west. They're going east-west, going over the side of the map and coming back on the other side. So the world cruise, it'll go past Australia, New Zealand, and then it'll re-emerge and come up wherever it is, the Atlantic Ocean, and sail towards the west coast of the United States.
Okay, I want to insert something here before Matthew starts talking, and because Matthew's been involved in Flat Earth longer than the rest of us. And so when I entered the Flat Earth, the AE map was considered a gimme, and all sorts of reasons for that. But it was like, this is the Flat Earth. This is the representation of the Flat Earth. The circle with the thing, it's just like the logo that pops up, when on my channel. The whole idea is that was presented when I walked in the door as this is the Flat Earth model that we're working with.
Simplification.
Okay? and there was no dome over the top of it. It was just the circle with the ice around the outside, and the coordinating it with the UN map, and all of that secrety stuff was already on the table. So what in your opinion, Matt, did the AE map become the representation for the flat Earth?
Before the in between the United Nations formations and the League of Nations, the map that you see used right now for the United Nations is the original Flat Earth Society map. That's their that's the Flat Earth map. The
okay,
UN,
and who created that map?
That would be the society that was with its roots with Robotham, that was around in the 40s. And so that was their emblem. So the world government co-opted that flag, that logo, that emblem. And so that's where that's from. And I think I see it as a simplification that probably has, I believe, a margin of error. I speculate the margin of error is maybe less than that for sure of the globe, and I would still say about 18% on this area. In that map, you have a white rung, a perfect circle. So when I see a perfectly circular ice coast, I'm like, that's just a carryover, in the azimuthal of this rung. The circularity of this coastline, I would see it as just with the dynamics of force, temperature, contraction, expansion, viscosities of water, liquid, magma, air, wind, and erosion over time, be it 7,000 years or 7 billion years, I don't see it being perfectly circular. I see it more like probably a coagulate puddle. That circularity is the perimeter of control and security. And not at all an ice wall.
That's where we
don't
disagree.
even believe in the ice wall. I speculate there's a massive river-ocean corridor that's west of Chile. It's a hunch, not a belief. It's a hunch, and I'm not articulating properly right now, and I'm putting the cart before the horse. So I'm not offering the research, but the way the military's reacting to this thing spread, I would say that there's probably some. This is the type of paranoid reaction, covert displacement of naval ships and military personnel to Antarctica right now as this thing races through the web. It points to two things. It is flat. They're concealing more land, and compendium to more land is the panic of the naval patrols under the covert auspices of patrolling for poachers. I think there's massive river-ocean corridors. Simply, like there was one in America.
Those really old maps that we see have it that way. They have land masses, and then there's the separations of what looks like rivulets going off around between these large continents.
Yeah.
The thing that's bothering a lot of people is that when you question this map, is they don't understand it's not a map. It's a projection that you can take the center and move it to any other place and reproject the map. If you took it to Giza and made the center the pyramids at Giza, the whole map changes, a projection changes based on the arbitrary center, correct?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So if it's a projection, it's a chosen projection that creates center at the North Pole, supposedly, okay, which then leads a lot of people to believe, okay, well then that works with the Mount Meru thing, and that works with the toroid thing, and
it also works with Polaris. Not to forget Polaris, which is
and the Aurora Borealis, and harps up there, and magnetite does exist. And if you got a big whack of it that came in from some debris belt above us, where meteors come from, shooting stars, and it was big enough, it could create an impact crater, melt an area the size of the Earth geothermally, attract forces of magma towards its magnetism, and then subside over time, which is what they're counting as the shifting of the magnetic north axis. They say that the axis of the Earth is shifting. No, this rock is shifting. there's tectonic displacement that's happening with this magnetite deposit in the north that compasses do point to, and we do have ancient account from the Norse, from the Merovingians, from the Vedics of this existing in their folklore, if you want to call it. I guess folklore is the distance from being able to prove what was once a fact. But this in their history, they describe a mountain that its magnetic pull was so strong that it would pull the nails out of boats when you got close to it.
Yeah, that was on some remote island, though, wasn't it? It was out in somewhere tropical, wasn't it? That magnetic thing.
Well, magnetite's all over the planet. It's a plentiful resource. Where's it from?
Isn't that where the premise for the show Lost came from, or something?
I think it was off the coast of Africa somewhere, wasn't it? That magnetic island.
Oh, is that right? Wow. It's amazing when you look at TV. It's like, I don't watch TV, but I just tuned into it to see what movies are out now. It's like every freaking movie is about an enclosed society that suddenly wakes up that there's more outside of a perimeter. Pretty fascinating. So then they could say, well, Matt, you watch too much TV. But in this case, I don't. I think
no, me too.
TV watches too much.
I'm with you. I discovered all of those as well.
I think TV's watching too much of us.
Yeah,
and it's adapting.
exactly.
I mean, these are all good ideas for like sci-fi Hollywood, enclosed world scenarios. So there's a blur
problem. Here's one of the problems is, Lawrence, he's a stickler for once he gets on something, he's like a pit bull. He won't let go. He's like 200 pounds per square inch of bite to his jaw. And so when he started investigating about the path of the sun over the Earth, and trying to make it work with this sun circling around in this circuit overhead, and the time and date patterns of places where the length of day was determined. I mean, they can't fake that kind of information very much because people actually live there and can go, wait a minute, that's not exactly right. The sun didn't set then, or the sun didn't rise then. So he's, looking at this, and then he turned me onto it, and I started looking at it, and I'm like, wait a minute, if the sun makes this circuit, whether it's at the Tropic of Cancer, around the equator, or the Tropic of Capricorn on the bigger circle, the amount of daylight in these particular places doesn't work. So it's either not going in a circle, or these places aren't where they say they are. So you have to question which one of these premises is false.
I think it's a combination of both. Because the maps aren't correct. I mean, I got to verify this, but I always thought it was quite interesting that when I was in Berlin and then I went to London, I might be wrong, but from what the maps show, Berlin should be, I think, I'm not too sure. I could be wrong here because I need to, but is Berlin lower in latitude than London?
I think
it's very similar.
Pretty similar.
There's not much between them. Probably 5 degrees, if that.
It was 40 minutes later sunset in Berlin. The same week. It's big. That's big.
Yeah, 40 minutes isn't a lot, though, is it? You can get 40 minutes difference in the UK. If you went from Scotland to London, there'd be 40 minutes difference there. You'd get.
If it's on a trajectory, it should be, it shouldn't be 10 o'clock sunset, 9:10, 9:20 in London. You follow this. So either it's further south or further north Berlin, and it's not. So it's like there's a margin of error everywhere. I mean, there was a radio interview with a Navy guy, because Mark Sargent has access to all the military that he needs for his shows, and he pointed out they're not arriving at their scheduled times. These aircraft carriers, these destroyers, are not arriving when they're supposed to. They're there a day earlier or 2 days earlier, or like a week late. So, and sometimes they're just hanging out in the ocean, like somebody gave them the order, just like to blur time with everybody out at sea. so they don't really know when they were supposed to come in. And people don't have a memory. You ask anybody what happened a month ago, they don't remember.
Isn't that convenient?
Yeah, so
we don't know where we are. We don't know where we are, and we don't know when we're getting there, and we're in the military, and we're just following orders. Isn't that convenient?
Well, that's the type of people that gravitate towards the military, and that's the type of people the military want.
Well, okay. Jonathan, do you have any questions that you'd like to ask Matt, since this is the first time he's been on the show?
Yeah, one thing, I don't know, it's up to you if you want to talk about it. I've always sort of been curious about what it was like working, alongside as a subcontractor for NASA.
I'm at liberty to talk about that as much as I have, in that there's departments that are not in communication with other departments, and there's a staff of artists that are working on textures and components of a final product where they're not privy to completely confirm the use of their texture in that graphic. And this is so they can come up with original graphics, and there's no direct accountability as to who created it completely. So in the end, it's just like a crop cutout circle, and or it's a team that's working on a small maquette in a room. And this is what I've understood with people I work with that were far more involved than I was, because I was just working with paint spills and stuff like that, because there's some people in the circ industry that had crossover into the aerospace and NASA industry, and then they put me in touch with some people, and some people saw my work and they thought, wow, the way these colors are bleeding with their viscosities and these resins, and also some of these dilutants he's working, and the way he's doing impact physics on these puddles, we're creating fractal effects that look infinite. So this is great for doing, when you're low orbit and you want to give the idea of clouds on top of clouds on top of clouds.
Sure, yeah.
So for celestial bodies that are not known and there's no verification through a telescope, so then you could feed them an image. It's just that once they hone in, they're going to use this image set, right? They're kind of at the mercy of like a few. But we all know cameras today, they could take thousands of images. So that there's a few. I believe there's a few. They could be the likes of Dali. They could have been the likes of even some of the really, really good photorealists, like Richard Estes, or Andrew Wyeth, even Norman Rockwell, who used sets. Who knows? So in the end, there are artists. It is now exposed. They've redressed all their images. I have a fine line of NDAs and legal technicalities that I won't cross over, and I'm allowed to employ this in the field of artistic expression and freedom, in the field of theater, as you will, without stepping over and tripping on any wires and bringing up any names. But
I guess my only question to you then, and because I don't want to get you in any sort of trouble, and I totally understand what you mean.
Other people too. That's what other people don't understand. There's other people too. They have families. They work there. They hired me on, they hired me in good faith. And there's certain things I could say, and I was told I could say before I would even get too invested in that organization. It was more the other people that I ran into the other artists that gave me the inside track, and then just by being friends with them and knowing I was doing very edgy stand-up, they're like, you got to let this through stand-up because this is the only way this is going to get out. Look, I'm not going to become a teacher at a university and then suddenly one day, all right, now's the time to tell the physics class. I'm not going to become a preacher and then be labeled as a cult. I'm not going to become the mayor or a senator and then suddenly, all right, now I'm going to pass a bill that's going to expose NASA that it's flat. There's no way you could get this information out except from the way I did it, and that was through areas where a lot of people would conglomerate and you could do it in a fashion where they were kind of trapped in logic, and that was the perception test, and then that was the beginning of me ruining my life.
Well, it's brilliant. It's brilliant, and without getting you into too much trouble, would you say that it's safe to assume that most of the people at NASA probably think the Earth is a spinning globe?
Well, here's where it gets interesting. Yes and no, and you could kind of see the revelation of the method in the movie Capricorn 1. They have a psychiatrist on the floor at Cape Canaveral, and he profiles cognitive dissonance or any kind of person who's going to notice an anomaly. It was a very telling movie. Like, why would you make a movie like that and lend out the logo of NASA for a movie that's that in itself is quite fascinating. I believe the guy that's in charge of the Mars project, and he's involved in quite a few projects, and he's on the floor. The guy with the black hair, who kind of has a little Elvis haircut and the earring.
Oh yeah, Adam something or other.
Yeah, he's a handler. He's a psychiatric handler for everybody on the floor, and the people they hire are people who are, they're invested in this. They're not going to bite the hand that fed them. Me, I'm an artist. I had the luxury of having, the ability to make people laugh with edgy material, be it nuclear weapons or military-industrial complex, or just silly things. And I will always do that because I enjoy laughter. Who doesn't? And I like tackling big subjects. Then again, I don't have much vested interest in being a comedian or a star because I'm a painter. So I'm in a position where if anybody was lucky enough where they could be financially resilient to expose this, where I don't have a mortgage and a family, and that's the only thing I know is physics or how to build this component for the Mars lander, and that's it. And if I say this is fake, what am I going to do? Be a plumber? What am I going to do next after that? So there's a lot of people that are invested in the accolade and the ego of working for NASA, and this is exactly the type of people they're going to profile and hire. I had something with my texture.
That right there is the nail on the head, Matthew. Is they're going to profile the people that they're going to hire prior. It's the same way with government jobs, or military jobs. Any
interest they had in me was the quick fix and the fractal effects I was doing with the products I was doing and how I was employing them to create these infinite fields of depth on floors. And also the candy land of doing 5,000 square feet of abstract infinite detail where you could just crop out sections after sections. I mean, it was literally these were like sci-fi surfaces. I didn't think of them as such. I was doing rare stones or making up my own type of stone effects that don't exist, or where old rust fuses into copper and infuses into petrified wood.
Right.
Like
it's called
weird
fantasy
stuff like that.
I do it for a living too.
Yeah, and you know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, I do.
And everybody knows what we're talking about now. And you see these guys on the street with the spray can. So.
Matthew, have you watched Felix Bowmeyer's Red Bull jump, supposedly the highest parachute jump? Have you actually taken a look at that?
Camera ABC. Red Bull is in controlling any vector of culture creation. They're a sponsor for anything. It's a dangerous drink that's highly addictive. People are put on dialysis when they try to withdraw from the symptoms of drinking this drink. So just the fact that Red Bull is involved, and from what I understand, it's a QTEL startup. It's a CIA startup company. Like most online companies, or most of these companies these days, they get venture capital from QTEL, which is a conflict of interest.
Yeah, well, they were using artists for that. If you actually watch the footage on that video, at the moment he's about to take the jump and he looks down and you see the earth beneath him, if you freeze the screen and save it, and then have a good look at it, you can actually see the brush strokes. They've actually painted the earth below him. It's he didn't even do the jump. He probably just did a normal parachute jump and pretended that he'd gone that high up. You can actually see the clouds. The artist painting the clouds of on the video.
It's disturbing that we have so much reality vested, like the proof of reality is vested in a screen transmitting an event.
Yeah.
It's
okay. I have a question for you, Matthew, because I've had to deal with it quite a few times in my Flat Earth Conspiracy Facebook group. You're a member, so you know how many times people, and I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I do mean to put you on the spot.
Do I put my hands on lock position for this or something?
No.
She handcuffed my hands for everything.
Typically, you have an answer for everything, and so
no, I don't.
I'm quite confident that if you don't like what I ask you, you'll have an answer for it anyway. So, the number one thing that seems to have become quite contentious with regards to you. Now, this show has been known over the last 9 weeks, and everyone on it can testify that if we see something that somebody's doing or somebody's saying, we call them out. And we've sometimes been labeled for bullying or being mean to people, especially people like Mark Sargent or Eric Dubé. So since you're considered one of the, founder, well-known
what is it?
people, okay, did I set that up well enough?
Yeah. Shoot.
Okay, so with regards to all this shill stuff, not that you're calling anyone a shill, but that people are calling you a shill, okay? Now, we all know that the whole word shill is crap, all right? But regardless, people go through your videos and they go through your posts and they go through your photographs and they pick apart all of the
stuff I do anyways.
Obvious Masonic symbolism, or things like the 33 T-shirt, for crying out loud, and all these things. And in my opinion, after having known you for a while and have watched you be a comedian, I mean literally, but also having spoken with you on many occasions and understand that you have quite a good mind and you're very good at spinning both positively and negatively, meaning thinking a few steps ahead. What are you doing? You know those are obvious symbols. You know that people are going to find them. You know that they're going to call you out on it. So are you spoofing and punking on people?
No.
And if you are, will you just say so?
No,
so we can get past that?
Look, because I had somebody really sincerely approach me about this. And I could tell by the way they wrote and the way they approached me, it wasn't like somebody coming in to troll or shill. And I did some research because to me, if I'm going to court and you go, why would you use the court system? Let's just hypothetically say we're going to use the court system to prove, those images are real and there's a curvature. And then we want to prove, well, who's perpetrating this? Well, then we would look at the scientific bodies, and then we would look at who's in charge of those scientific bodies. And then we would go, well, where did this start? Who was the first one to cite it? And then we would look at what organization they were part of. When it comes to secret societies, good luck. Good luck. And I'm not saying that because I'm part of them. I'm saying it's a secret society. So unless you're involved in that society, which is going to be, I see people outside in Trafalgar Square. You'll attest to this, Lawrence. Have you been to Trafalgar Square?
I've been, yeah.
Yeah, you'll see placards with, Joe Smitten or Raphael de Monte or whatever, killed by Masons. Killed by Masons. And when I went to London, I was like, this is really dark. I'm in Trafalgar Square. There's vigils, and there's people saying these people were killed by Masons. And I go, well, I didn't approach the situation or the people because I thought this is quite brash, and they're like doing a PR sort of thing. But at the same time, I'm like, it's a secret society. They're going to blend all over the place if they're up to this. It's going to be compartmentalize itself like NASA or any intelligence agency, or Russia or China or Iran. I mean, they all employ this departmentalization so that things are put together finally in pieces from many different vectors so nobody really can account what the heck was being built. When it comes to sensitive things, could be ideology, could be equipment in space, could be anything. And there's very few where it's like the whole group's doing it from A to Z. Everybody's working
Matthew, when you did that interview with...
So I just wanted to say that I'm not going to shake a stick at that. That's dead end. I also know that individuals from a potential fraternity, because of the way they move in together, I could see the time codes when they all come in to troll and bully somebody who's citing me on a page or bully me. Anybody saying extended land. And there's a fraternal sort of mechanic going on with these people that are attacking and like a posse all at the same time. It's fraternal. It's an association. I won't say it's the government. I would say there's people within the government who have access to government tools working with people outside committing these crimes. And they're using online platforms. Now, they have this thing apparently as a code because I'm not researching them. I'm researching Jesuits and the royal families. They're the ones that are always standing after paradigms collapse. So I'm just going where the money goes. Who's on the money? And who's always around.
Matthew, everybody knows
this is okay.
Or that. Everybody knows that.
No. Here's where you might go. What is
and the 33, and they all know this. This is why I'm asking you.
Yeah, but hold on.
Are you punking people? Are you punking the Masons?
No, if anything,
because you're not a Mason that I can tell.
I'm not punking. I'm not anything. I'm moving my hand like this. And then people go, well, then maybe you're not in control of what you're doing. And it's like when I'm saying something specific, like this, or when you're saying something specific, or like, do you want some sugar in your tea, or do you want some more scotch? And you do like a.
So you're not throwing signs to your.
No, I'm like I'm doing hand gestures that are just normal hand gestures. Like when I'm like pointing like this, I don't mean to be putting you under a goat spell.
Okay. All right.
And by the way,
I have one more question because it goes with it.
David Icke has arthritis in his hands from being a soccer player, but it doesn't preclude that he's not doing that as well. So I mean, but I'll be honest with you. I apologize to anybody who might have taken like I'm putting in a code or something. I'm not putting in a code, and this is me being genuine and sincere. So if this is preventing you from listening to the actual facts that I'm delivering, I mean, I'll be mindful of this. But in the end, I kind of feel bugged that somebody owns the tip of my index and the tip of my thumb. And
sadly,
I should be allowed to do that. I should be able to do gestures that don't, I can't do that, and not have to worry about it. I should be able to count up to 33 and not skip it.
Yes, you should. And I should be able to come on my videos and talk to people and not be accused of being Carrie Cassidy and people making videos saying that I'm Carrie Cassidy when everybody that knows me knows I'm not, okay? So that's part of the game. When you put yourself on the front seat, drive in the car, okay?
Yeah, I apologize if there's anybody who's genuinely
on the front seat. You want to be
disturbed by that. I apologize, but that was not my intention, and my intention wasn't to punk them either. I just liked that orange. It had 33. And I'm kind of saying, like, goats are nice animals. They're really cute. It's sad that they've been demonized, and there's this weird cult that's made them the emblem of their thing. But in the end, I mean, the goats are not evil. The goat itself is not evil. You have to.
No, the goat is not evil.
Understand that. And neither is the number 33, but it's been co-opted and in black magic. and this is probably co-opted for owls or whatever it is. And right now,
right now,
there's somebody freezing
frame of you doing that and me doing that, and then this is going to end up on the world's internet as, oh, here's Lori Frey and Matthew Powerland sewing hand signs of the Illuminati bullshit.
It's not okay. And this is the new symbol for okay. It's not okay. Not okay.
Okay.
Let me ask you this question, Matthew. I'll get a word in edgeways. You know when you did that interview with that French-sounding woman, I think she might have been your girlfriend at the time, and you were sat on the couch, the very sober interview you did, and you told us about NASA and so forth, and the parties that you went to, and they told you about the Earth being flat. You mentioned that you went to a Jesuit school. Most of us have no idea what goes on in Jesuit schools. Could you sort of give us a bit of a rundown as to how things go on there compared to a regular school?
I'll tell you how things go on.
I want to explain that if we're trying to do anything here by asking you these questions, because this is the first time that, you've been here with us, and
I'd like to get back to Sheridan, though, after we ask these questions, because it's very important we discuss this
I agree.
Because of what's going to happen in the next week. And that's why I primarily came here.
I'm either trying to restore some credibility, all of your credibility, and put you back as listen to what I say and not what I, gesture or what I wear or whatever. It's important to me that you're either real or that you're irrelevant.
Did we do the Beavers? That's from the Beavers. That was a beaver. That was a beaver too. So don't hold that against me. He was in the Beavers.
So quickly,
that guy was the Beavers. I'm telling you. I was also a pup.
I have no idea what that means.
Okay, the Jesuit schools. Okay, this is where I'm pointing a finger at the Jesuits, because the Jesuits were the first off the boat in new land. And like I said in this crazy notion, if the crucifix and the revelation the earth is a ball didn't convert the tribe, then it was the armies that would slaughter the town. That was the way it was, okay? And they used them coming from the water so that they could, use that as a legitimate, credible argument for the ball and for Jesus is going to save you. The Jesuits are the ones that created the ball. They're the ones that created the mathematics, the rudimentary first mathematics before Newton came in from the Royal Society. The Vatican is involved in creating Hollywood. P.W. Griffith, the P.W. Griffith Award, he owned the property where the Hollywood sign was. And a lot of people don't know this, but I'm going to put this out soon. But Griffith was in a bit of a land grab battle between certain developers. And his wife wanted to sell the property where the Hollywood sign is right now. And she shot him. She killed him. This is a story about how Hollywood was created. Before he died, he began these paranoid allegations that the Pope was trying to get a hold of the property. And the Pope was calling up his wife regularly to get briefed on the sale of the property and when he's going to sell, what price, who was approaching him, and all this stuff. It ended with his death. Now there's a conservatory, a Jesuit conservatory, right next to the Hollywood sign. When you type in the Hollywood sign, you can't go to it. They'll send you right to the Jesuit conservatory. So I find it very interesting that the Pope was involved in the Civil War. The Pope was involved with the creation of Hollywood, which is basically NASA, because you can't have NASA without Hollywood, right? Hollywood is the spell to push the entire corporation. And the Jesuits are involved. The Jesuits were involved in Syria in 2012. They cited a Jesuit priest as being expelled from the country, who was basically disseminating information against Assad. A Jesuit was a captain on a Titanic that took out the Astors, who were the only boat against the Federal Reserve. The Jesuits were the first ones to colonize and convert the savage, and the Jesuits run all the major political universities worldwide. At the time, I didn't quite know that. My treatise and my focus as a political scientist going into school was on the royals running the show, because I was, born in Canada. This is archaic. This woman thinks I'm a subject of her. I never met her. I've been born in this world, in this realm, and I'm a subject of a person I've never met. I found that very archaic and disturbing. And so I started to research that as a very young age. And I went to university at a very young age, and I went to one of the best political science schools in Canada. If you want to know the battle, if you want to be in the battlefield, you got to know the battle. And if you want to know who you're battling, you got to know your enemy. I didn't know at the time it was going to be the Jesuits as a spiritual colonizer for a physical real estate colonizer, the Royals. I didn't put it all together. But I have to say,
there
I
were
met
priests
Jesuit
on
priests.
board every ship coming from Europe to the New World to do the explorations and so forth, as well as the captains looking for the gold and looking for spices and whatever else they could co-opt to bring back to Europe and declare ownership of whatever land they landed on. The whole thing was secretly, in my opinion, being run by the Jesuits, who were, aboard every one of these ships.
Educators, right? The
Okay.
university.
All right. So we've beat you up a little bit, but you don't have any blood on you. So you're
No, it
fine.
wasn't intentional. I wasn't trained in any kind of Jesuit MK Ultra. I'm really alone. I'm like a lone gunman on this whole thing, because I saw a progression of a system that was encroaching on freedom of expression, and I could only see that as symptomatic of mind control. And so if we don't sort of, exercise our ability to question the research or question out loud, well, then it's the beginning of tyranny. And tyranny is, not long after that, is biochipping and mind control. And that is the police fantasy.
So I want to move to some predictions, because it's the beginning of the year, and we've been watching. I've been involved in Flat Earth since late February of 2015. Lawrence has been in it for a couple years now. Jonathan, how long have you been in Flat Earth researching?
Since a couple weeks before May of 2015, so the middle of April.
Okay. Now, so we've all watched the progress of this year. We've watched what Matthew likes to call the first wave of people, who is apparently everyone prior to March or April, that heard about and or discovered in some way that the Earth is flat and started doing some research. And then the second wave was during the summer, and they were pretty much a product of the people who were the first wavers, who started being a little bit more overt about talking about it. And then the third wave came in about October, I believe, end of August. End of September, early October. And now we're looking at the fourth wave, apparently, which are more of people who are becoming involved in it because it's starting to be trendy.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone is at least maybe kind of heard about it. You'd have to be living under a rock in the U.S., especially if you're on Facebook, to not have heard at least something about the flat Earth. So, prediction-wise, most people have high hopes about 2016 as being the time when it starts to hit the mass media. And I'm actually not looking real forward. I thought I was looking forward to that, but after the Sheridan thing happened, I'm not really looking real forward to it.
No, I'm not looking.
Tell me why. Tell me what you see, Matthew, as far as prediction from what you've seen so far, cumulative, where you think.
Well, it's almost like they really kind of put in their fake flat Earth in the middle of the what was real, and they can just address that. So when it gets to the point of, they have to deal with it because there's quite a, it is embarrassing, the level of I would say men perpetrating the same crimes of assumption that the status quo scientific community will do with the ball, with the word gravity, with the dome, and making a disk and a finite amount of land. It's almost embarrassing. It's enough to, okay, well, I'm going to just step back and then start looking at the psychological dimensions of this pissing contest of man's ego to want to put a lock on the total creation or what it is, and the cart before the horse. And it's I feel like that is not going to serve us well, and it's feeding right into their plan, because I don't have a budget here. I don't have a budget. I don't have like 1,000 trolls to go out and attack anybody who comes against me, or a radio platform with like 10 other DJs, which is, you know, allied with GCN and then InfoWars. I mean, I don't, you know, and it's all suspect as long as they're not sticking to. Look, I'll tell you one thing that happened in 2015, and it's huge. There's zero curvature. That was proven. The mathematics of the curvature of a 26,000 mile circumference planet has been destroyed. It is now exposed as not only wrong, but because it's so wrong and it should not be, according to the images they supplied, which are paintings, it's a deception. Then that means that all the events that push curvature are part of an elaborate orchestrated deception. I mean, this is David against Goliath. It's quite freaky. And the way it's proportionally spreading, and the proportional reaction with military activity in Antarctica and around Tasmania right now, I mean, I don't know where this is going to go. But it's definitely with something like Thomas Sheridan. He himself is either genuinely creeped out because of his cognitive dissonance to even apply the curvature formula on the ground with an optic on a landmark, or he's an asset to the smear to familiarize people that this movement is getting radical. Inside this movement are fake radicals, like those guys that just took land in Oregon, trying to exercise their right to public land use. Those guys are fake. There's fake radicals in this movement. Now, is Sheridan a copycat who actually thinks these are real radicals? Or is Sheridan right that there's a mixture of real radicals and agents provocateurs in here? The fact that Sheridan's talking about this is quite concerning, and it is my concern. And it's enough
like the
to make me
vote
want to back
that
out.
was in the parking lot with Jeranism's name and Globebusters and all that written on it. Does that play into this?
Yeah.
Do you know about that?
And also the guy that all the anti-Semitism. I mean, there's Nazis in charge of Ukraine right now. Mein Kampf is now back in the bookstores in Germany. Okay? And Eric Dubé or Michaels, whatever his name is, Rick, whatever, or Jason. I have no idea what this guy's name is. I don't know where he is. And to have that much information about the psychological cognitive dissonance when you approach somebody and challenge the globe, well, where did he get all that information from? He's been in Thailand. He doesn't even speak about it to no one out there, and he just found out about it for 8 months. So how could you write about the psychological obstacles people go through? Red flag. Guy's a phony. Sergeant's a phony. They're smearing the whole thing with all this Bible speculation. I'd like to talk even, like, what are the proofs for a dome? Let's talk about that.
Well, let's talk about it, because we've talked about it on the show, and we all across the board on this panel right now are not what is considered domers. We do not believe in.
What's a proof of a dome?
Well, let me qualify the word, because it's very important.
Glass seal.
For later, okay. The term dome, when we use it, we're talking about the Truman Show snow globe.
It's a Hollywood.
Made out of glass, that is like the overturned cake plate concept that Mark Sargent, Rob Skiba, others.
So Jim Carrey is a proof. Is Jim Carrey the proof?
There is no proof. So when we say dome, that's the dome
Carry the
we're
comedian
talking
to
about.
prove.
We're not talking about the biblical term firmament or rakia, however you say it. Nobody is disputing what the Bible says about a firmament that God created that separates the waters from above from the waters below. That is not what we're talking about, and that is not what the word dome in our assessment represents. Would I be correct, everybody, in what I just said?
Yes.
I would say that if there's any dome, it would be possibly a dome-like tendency of the electromagnetic field
Yeah.
that's generated by the Earth, but no sort of physical dome whatsoever.
No glass ceiling. That,
No.
like a cascading aurora borealis that sort of cascades like an umbrella sort of energy particle field.
So,
That's observable. That's observable.
So when did where did this dome come from? All of a sudden, and I mean all of a sudden. This summer there was no talk of a dome. There was part of the look of a dome in the models.
It's Hollywood.
Animated.
It's a Hollywood comparison.
I'm sorry.
Well, and for somebody to point to the predictive programming as proof of anything just shows that they're either just being ignorant or they're actually manipulating the pre-programming and getting people to believe something that's false. That's the way I see it.
Exactly. Hollywood, like
Yep.
the spell. Exactly. Give them something that they've seen with bells and whistles and slick CGI. Well, then it's Game of Thrones. It's Insurgent. It's Divergent. It's it's Mockingjay. It's Hunger Games. It's
there's just as many dome
then there's the Congress
visuals. Okay, dome replicas and dome visuals in our history to account for why people would automatically go, see, there's dome capitals, there's little domes that Jewish guys wear on their heads. There's so many types of domes.
Yeah.
Domes
Well,
over churches.
domes.
I think ultimately it's just a misunderstanding of perspective, because if you see a star near the ground, near the horizon line, then you'd think, oh, well, that star is near the ground, but it's not. It's on the same plane as the other stars and on the model that I subscribe to, and it's just further away from you, and so it drops lower towards the horizon, just with the laws of perspective, and that's why I could see it being, sort of a misunderstanding that it's a dome, but that's, that to me, that's all it is a misunderstanding.
Perspective works both ways.
True.
As on the ground, as is above, as is below. So when you see both sides of that highway coming to a point, that doesn't mean that at that point is the end of the road. It's the end of your road, what you see as the end of the road. And it's the same thing with above. The sky will converge the same way, because distance is distance, and convergence happens with distance.
Right.
And there are fainter stars. People have to understand that.
Kristen, I saw your icon light up. Did you have some input on this?
It's so true about the stars. It's so true that's the most misleading factor of the celestial bodies, in terms of people getting misled or becoming misled to think it's a dome shape happening. And it's what Matthew and John both touched on, both of those points. How the stars are fainter above or close to the horizon, as well as more sparse. Okay, and that is because they're simply further away, just as with the sun or moon close to the horizon. It's a distance thing, nothing more. And when you look at time lapse, you can really see this, where the stars are appearing much more clearly to be rotating on a kind of a flat plane in the sky, no different than, again, sun, moon.
Over a flat plane, yeah. Or you're saying it's a flat plane above.
A flat plane in the sky, so to speak.
Okay,
so there's really no dome shape happening. Again, it's just this understanding of perspective, as John touched on, that really reveals simply that.
Everything we see, and this is where there's going to be the observable measure from our eyes and our senses, and this is how light will affect this field of frequency and energy and form. But what's interesting is wherever you are, the middle of your eye is the center of your perspective. right? So if you are here, you're in the center of the convergent perspective of stars that could be going at a distance. So anything circular or goes to convergence is because it's from your central point of view looking up, and then you're always going to hone in on a center. Just like when you take a photo and you frame up. You see the center of that frame. You don't see a center over here. It's impossible, even with the optic of a camera. So we know that position of point of view of optic, or position of point of view of organic optics, the eyes, there will always be a center point from your frame of your 180 frame. Unless, I guess, you have 720 eyesight. I don't know how it is to see like a dragonfly. But it'd be interesting to see. But I was going to ask Morgile a few questions, if that's okay.
Certainly.
So my main goal here is that the model we're pushing here, which is we're citing the theory, which is backed by a fact, a historical fact, where there was land concealment perpetrated on unbeknownst to public by providing them a limited scope of geography or map. We're talking about Europe circa Columbus, a man walking around saying there's more land, there's more passage, there's more this way, and people were saying you're crazy. And if it took off, it's the same thing. I'm sure of it, right? You're the devil. So we have a historical case where land was concealed from the public, and we have that time and time again. This is all about real estate, and I think pushing for an expedition and applying a full. Now we know it's flat because the curvature math doesn't work. I don't say I believe it's flat. I know it's flat. You believe it's a ball. You believe that image is a photo of it as a ball. And you have a point of view. Everyone has a point of view that they've adopted of reality, and yet no one's seeing that except military officials.
Well, and the point beyond flat that I would say is probably equally, if not more so important, is stationary. Because a lot of people, when they first stumble on this, they get confused, and you say flat Earth, and they think of a disk flying through space, and to me, that's ridiculous. What we think of as space is not this infinite, infinitude of galaxies and such. It's just merely a feature of our world, and we've been sort of tricked into believing that we're occupying a small part of nothing, when in fact, it seems like we're a major part of everything.
I think there's we got him up a tree. We found the weakness, and it's the ramifications are bigger than any conspiracy right now. And I know Thomas Sheridan and all these people will get very upset, but they need to go and understand the globe model and understand the calculation of the Earth's curvature if it's 26,000 miles in circumference, and they have to know that it has to arc. If it's a ball, it has to arc. And so to join that arc into a full circle, or full spherical circumference of 26,000 miles approximately on all sides of that sphere, that horizon has to drop, which means an object at 40, 60, 80 miles, a lighthouse, a building, an island, a rock, I shouldn't be able to see it. I'm seeing it. So we have a failure of the curvature formula. We had a teacher in Tasmania who got challenged by one of her students that the curvature won't work. He took the class out, overlooking a flat, vista, and he said, like, here, we're going to apply it, and we should not be able to see that landmark. The whole class was there. The poor guy was embarrassed. He's a university professor. This spread throughout the University of Tasmania. This is a couple of weeks ago. Okay, the professor's freaked out. He doesn't want to be addressed on it. He wants to move on. He wants to move on with a failure of curvature. The whole school is now petitioning the dean to have a debate on the curvature of the Earth. Not if it's flat or a ball, but whether it's got a curvature, or whether that curvature mathematics, their figures for the ball, are real, and they're not. So now there's a Navy ship that's been an icebreaker that's been displaced around Tasmania, with an oil tanker to boot, and there's no refineries on the island. There's massive military activity all over the place. Now I know these Aussie men and some of these Aussie girls. I mean, it's in their DNA to rebel. I mean, would they do a boat rush? I mean, the dome can be proven through an expedition or fail. Extended land theorem, as cited by Columbus, could be proven or fail with an expedition. What I find interesting is in the dome community, I have a huge red flag. None of them push snooping around Antarctica. Why is that?
Well, there's no point because there's a dome there.
Why don't they go and knock on the dome?
Where are you gonna go? You can't get out.
Why don't they go pierce the dome?
We're not going anywhere, Gilbert.
I mean,
Well,
listen
that's
to
just
the
what
priest.
drives you nuts.
And I
I was
heard
just
Jim
gonna-
Carrey's a high-placed priest and something else, by the way. So,
Wait,
Indeed.
I missed what Kristen said. Say again, Kristen.
Kind of lost my train of thought there. I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to cut in. I just
dome.
wanted to-
Why do the domers not want to go improve their glass wall?
Right, exactly. This is what just gets me about this is they seem to miss the big thing. There is okay. What's outside the dome? If there's a dome, it doesn't answer any questions. It just creates more questions. It's ridiculous. It's I don't understand that. That's a cognitive dissonance in itself. Really, it's a
bad insight into the type of people that are coming into this, and then we got people coming in here that don't know about geoengineering, or they believe the official story on any event that's going on right now, and they're finding out about flat Earth first. They don't even know about geoengineering. So it's like,
well,
wow.
that's part of the trending thing, and that's the part of the fourth wave thing. If people come in and they don't have the freedom or the opportunity to experience flat Earth like I did, like Jonathan did, like you did, where all of these things weren't already on the table and already presented as, well, this is the flat Earth model and this is what we're pushing. Because the minute that I read last week's story about not only in the U.S. On the website, but in the U.K., what's the name of that newspaper, Lawrence?
UK Daily.
Daily Express.
Daily Express, where the flat Earth model was presented as the Truman Show dome a la Mark Sargent, and closedworld.com and Eric DeBay's version, and those were the versions that they're presenting, and I didn't sign on for that. And none of us have signed on for that.
Did you see the discussion between Mark Sargent and Stanton Friedman?
I couldn't stand to listen to it after I heard the review.
I stopped it after about 5 minutes because.
How come you guys aren't going on about the zero curvature?
Really?
They didn't say anything about the curvature.
Never mentioned. No. I mean, well, it took an audience question.
How can you legitimately have a debate about flat Earth, or even bring up the subject without addressing that?
It was a fireside chat, and they were just being like pals. I think they'd probably all been set up in advance. If you watch those shows now, because this is what's happening, they are filling all YouTube full of dross and chat shows. So you go on Patricia Steer's show. There was that girl from Croatia, and Patricia Steer was talking to her, and the girl says, "Shall I tell you how about I got into flat Earth?" And she says, "No, don't tell me about that. Tell me about your pet." So then she's telling her about a fucking snake. And then Mark Sargent, he has that orphan red, this dizzy blonde whose sparkle dust goes on everything. He brought her on for his show for 20 minutes non-stop. He started asking her about famous people in Canada, whether they were a hit or a miss, whether she liked them or not. And I'm thinking, for fuck's sake, just a fucking chat show. Where's the flat Earth? They're all there.
Yeah, it would be nice if they could just talk about more hot potatoes, really. Even more hot potatoes, let alone, can we talk about the flat Earth a little more as well?
Well, or make it hot potatoes and other flat Earth stuff. I mean, change the title of the show.
My concern here is the psychological state of individuals coming into contact with this revelation. There is no curvature. If they do, or the revelation that it's a snow globe or it's a flat disk or that it's flat. And I mean, I'm definitely on the lookout for the scholars of this thing. Like who would I want to bring to a debate at a university on this? Curvature versus curvature formula debunked. Not flat, not ball, but curvature formula erroneous, false, fallacy.
Well, and there you go. You know what? And you just hit on something very important there, Matthew, because at the end of the day, it seems like the people who are attacked most within the flat Earth community are what you would call the scholars, or the people actually doing research. Yeah. Now Patricia got attacked, and she's admittedly not done any research, and that isn't her shtick. She says, I'm not into all of that. I'm not into the science and the math and all of that. What I want to do is I want to, have a platform where I, have those kind of people on my show and give them, airtime to do that. But aside from that, and she's getting great views. I think she has officially taken what Mark Sargent gave me, the award for the crown of High Priestess of Flat Earth, and now it's on her head. Good, fine, no problem. But the researchers, the people who are doing the hard work of Flat Earth, I think the only one that's not hardly ever getting attacked is Jonathan. I don't know why. I don't think it's fair. But Kristen's been under serious attack this past week.
I've been under still attack since I started doing it. I mean, I've had people trolling my YouTube page since day one. It's like if I put up a video, I'll get 6 dislikes every single time, for like a month, is within the first 5 minutes of uploading it. And then of course it'll get 100 likes.
On mine.
Yeah, no, but no, I've been under, shill attacks, and there's been some stupid videos made about me and such, and I just ignore them because I'm not here. I'm obviously not out there to, as a popularity contest. You don't go around saying we live on a flat Earth, a flat stationary plane Earth. If you're wanting to make friends, to me, it's just the obvious truth, and I just have an obligation. I have a moral obligation to stand up for it, and that's why I do commend Pat Steer. And you can have your arguments against her. I was on her show, and actually I did another show with her and David Weiss. I think it was called "Truth is Stranger Than Lies." And anyways, I love Pat Steer, and I'm not a fan of Mark Sargent whatsoever. I don't like to associate the two. I mean, they're two
journalists. She's doing her job. She's looking at all the people that are involved. Now, what I was going to ask you on the scholarly level here, what do we got? We've got zero curvature here. This is pretty damning evidence with an optic at sea, and I'm going to go and do some. I'm going to do some stuff myself. I'm not going to be asking for money for it. I'm going to be pulling it out of my own pocket and my own resources and stuff like that, because I don't like the account of having the stress of people who gave me money, navigating me at all, ever. Would you be inclined, or who would be inclined out of this group here, to do a debate tour at universities challenging the curvature formula? And just that.
Oh, yeah, I'd definitely...
Without, getting into, we could say flat and then all the stigma with it. But you could say zero curvature, according to your math, and you win. And that, you could have 2,000, 3,000 students, and they're going to walk out thinking it's flat. I don't even have to say the word flat. They will go, there's zero curvature. The curvature formula is incorrect on all accounts. Every time the optic was trained on that landmark, it wasn't obstructed by the horizon. So, I mean, this is, guys, this is an injunction on, this is a timeout on World War III, this is a timeout on universities, this is a timeout on everything, if people would focus on this. And it seems like as I hone that in myself, the more I get attacked, the more the crazy videos flood YouTube, like Jake Blast. And there's the other thing that we could focus on here, where we can move this towards, solution-driven media. Is we have 47 nations who are all violating their treaty in concert together. Okay, they're all violating it. No military activity. Now, if we could get one country or the ear of one ambassador or of one political in one country in Africa or in one country to file an inquiry or an investigation through the United Nations, I know it's their system and all this stuff. But if there was a way we could sort of move this towards some formal inquiry, because there's a clear violations going on here, and no country's noticing this, I don't think it's necessarily because of a global conspiracy and that everybody's in it on it in the government. I believe that human beings are so busy with their mortgage and their 9 to 5 and what they got to do at their desk in an embassy or in a government agency, they don't have time to even wrap their head around this. But if there's one maverick out there in any political institution or government institution of any country in the world that is not a member of that treaty and wants to start the process, the legal process of filing a motion to do an investigation as to why 47 nations are keeping the rest of the world off limits of this area and working in concert together clandestinely to violate their own treaty and militarize the area. So it's not under the auspices of environmental protection. They're protecting something else here. And this should be a formal legal challenge through the United Nations. These people are lying to the other 140 nations on this planet or the whatnot. And this is another thing you could bite on as a pit bull. And I mean, we got to move towards what we have accomplished in 2015. We have clear indications of a violation of a treaty by 47 nations. You have zero curvature that you could bring to debate into universities. We have NASA redressing all their imagery as artwork, CGI, and rendering and composite, which leaves maybe about 5% of all imagery provided by the scientific community of the heliocentric model as real authentic photos snapped from cameras. And these are low orbit. So we have a situation here. And then we have some air bubbles and some air tanks. They claim the spacewalk is being done underwater. But this is this is fringe. Zero curvature in treaty violation should be paramount interests and focus of this community. And I don't know why people are not moving and mobilizing together on that, DOMA or not.
Well, and you know, I just posted up in the public chat a link to, I set up a petition, call it a bit naive, but it's a petition to at least revisit the topic of conversation of the Antarctic and Arctic treaties. And one thing I guess I should or could probably add into the language of it is the fact that they are, you know, in fact violating their own treaty.
You have to have a petition in 47 nations.
Yeah, really. But I put the link up so anybody that wants to sign it. So far there's 270, and I put a goal of 100,000 by the end of 2016. So we shall see.
Well, I think that's achievable considering there's, you know, millions of flat earthers now. Most people, you know, scoff at that when I say that. But in my way of tracking the statistics, the trending, the numbers, the group numbers, the YouTube channels, the YouTube videos alone, we've easily exceeded 1 million people across the flat Earth who at least are enough believers at this point to call themselves flat earthers. Whether they're vocal about it or not is another matter. But you know, I would say they're card-carrying flat earthers at this point.
Well, that's the other thing. 2016, you should come out on your Facebook page. You've got like a
if you're a flat earther and you haven't declared your membership.
Yeah, no, and just to the curvature debate and the optics. I mean, they're going to get into light bending from lighthouses and all this other stuff. But I mean, the fact that I see that island, I see that boat. I mean, it's not obstructed in the least. I mean, this is damaging, damning evidence that the curvature formula is completely false.
Well, you know what? All division aside, you know, I for one have never been trying to be divisive. That's never been my intention. If I seem like I am because I say things like, "I'm sorry, I can't believe in this glass dome thing without any visible observable evidence, any proof of any kind, or having visited where this wall should be, you know, hit and land at," if that makes me seem contentious, well, my apologies to you, whoever you are, if that offends your belief system. But your belief system is based in something that
Jim Carrey.
is
Jim
not
Carrey.
provable at this point.
Which
Okay.
Jim Carrey's provable. Jim Carrey's provable. I could prove he's been in movies.
I have a question about this to Matthew. What are your thoughts on Project Fishbowl? What was any thoughts on that at all? To its legitimacy, or if it? I mean, getting at what evidence do we have? And I'm asking this to everyone on the panel, of course, about a ceiling.
About a ceiling.
About a ceiling. So Fishbowl relates to that, why that's part of the narrative that's been inserted in this movement that people have accepted as proof that there is some kind of ceiling. And I don't hear much more than that.
Something very interesting, I was watching Richard Branson, and he had 11 views. And it was 11 views. So it's not just us getting our view count rolled back. But he was stammering and stuttering like he didn't know what was going on, and he was taking his engineer's word for it. And it was basically after the last explosion, and he seemed quite genuine, as genuine as I could. That he seemed confused, and he was trying to put on an appearance. And I've gotten some word from some people who are in contact with him, and also Elon Musk. Now, I don't know if this is fake information, so I could think these guys are legit, about them being very upset and disturbed that their rockets should not be blowing up, and they're blowing up. So now, mind you, there was I did some research on the nuclear tests, and tried to get the information out about nuclear weapons. I did also see nukes don't exist, and the guy's got a lot of good points. It's almost like applying verbatim the curriculum I set out about space imagery, but with nukes. But nuclear energy is a real energy. Reactors do exist. There is such thing as nuclear contamination. Whether there's a racket and the nuclear ICBMs are duds, no one will know until launch day. And I hope I don't have to see that. I know that there are high altitude and low orbit or low altitude atmospheric explosions being conducted. Were those nukes, or were those rudimentary EMP devices? Well, they say they're nukes. There was some sort of displacement of energy, particle energy, be it a nuclear blast, or be it an EMP pulse blast. There were blasts done in the high upper atmosphere. Is there so much radiation up there right now, along with the natural ambient radiation that was already present in this area or this known world, that is now affecting the instrumentation of rockets? And I mean, I'm not even precluding they didn't go beyond the Van Allen belt. What I am saying, though, is that this surface, according to my application of mathematics, is flat. And I do know that there have been moments in history that land has been concealed on purpose. And people could see Alaska from Siberia, so I don't know what kind of spell they were under. But I mean, there's also a spell that the natives, when they didn't see the Spanish ships coming or the Portuguese ships coming, because they were never used to seeing ships on the horizon. So there's also the cognitive dissonance with our visual literacy, right? And I'm doing a lot of research with that. You could put it right in front of somebody and they won't see it. It's not just mental. It's actually the eyeball. It's the brain over the eyeball, and I see that continuously with Globers. So Fishbowl for me is not any indication of a ceiling. It is an indication when I couple it with the rockets that are blowing up and what I think is a genuine kind of confusion coming from Mr. Branson that something's not working out like they expected. but I don't think it's something hard. I
As
don't
far,
know.
as far as I'm concerned, Fishbowl was just more propaganda. To me, the video evidence looked like cartoons. That's just my opinion. I mean, I could be wrong, but I just think it was more propaganda and cartoons to basically solidify the whole nuclear idea.
I agree with John.
Yeah, I just don't see, because I've seen the evidence against the, nuclear bombs, and it's pretty compelling. And what happened to Hiroshima and Nagasaki was probably firebombing.
Yeah, air fuel.
Yep. So, at the end of the day, sure, we can get nuclear power, which is sort of a misnomer. All you're doing is generating heat from, radioactive material. Yeah.
Now, when you watch those old videos from the 40s and 50s of that were they always got that guy's voice, that same guy that has the barreling, beautiful voice, and here we are in beautiful Bikini Islands and blah blah. And the videos
Under the Willing
look like propaganda. I mean, they look like war movie propaganda films to me. So
It looked like Thunderbirds, if you're old enough to remember. Well, you are, Laurie, but the
up,
Tracy Island. When there was the big blast of this nuclear explosion, you've got all these little matchstick trees that all sort of automatically sort of folded over like it was a big model.
Those are great. And who's filming this, implosion?
Let's move forward.
If there was a bloody big dome, I mean, you've got a controlled environment. If it's a dome and they knew we were enclosed, the last thing you're going to do is blow a bloody hole in it because you're going to let all the air out. And
especially if you believe that there is a vacuum of
somewhere else.
Or water.
Water,
What is the relevance to moving this thing forward, Operation Fishbowl? Why do people see merit in moving the exposure of zero curvature and the violation of the treaty by its members? How does Fishbowl play into it? To me, it's what pieces are moving this forward.
No, this is the way they do. They already know years ahead what the end plan is going to be. It's like these time travel or something, or the plan is so advanced, so many generations ahead, that they actually lay the breadcrumbs for the look back then. I mean, they're smart enough to have laid the breadcrumbs.
Oh yeah.
For us to find, okay?
Yeah, of course, because
they made these fabulous videos.
So they know where it could go.
Like with the guy with the voice, that guy, and then we stumble across it years later, and they're all on. How did all these old films get on YouTube? Who put those on there? How'd they get on there? Somebody had to find the original film footage and then download it and upload it and do all that. Why is it there? How did it get there?
Mm-hmm.
So we would find it. That's why.
So what do we
would go? Oh, look! There's a reason why there's a dome. They were trying to blow a hole in it. I mean, I really believe that. I know it sounds crazy, but hey, if you all your life believed that you lived on a spinning ball, on a flat Earth that was fixed and flat, and all of a sudden a bunch of people started trying to sell you that it was a spinning ball flying through space with the greatest of ease, you would think they were crazy. Of course you would. So I'm completely fine with people thinking I'm crazy. I don't have a problem with that. But when I start giving you evidence and I start showing you the connections and you don't pick up on it and you poo-poo it, well, then it's your own damn bad luck. Because at some point in the, in the big scheme of things, those of us who have enough brains to collect all this stuff together, not only in our heads, but hey, it's not hard to open up a little notepad on your computer and pop some links in there, or put a little star next to that in your bookmark department, and then come back later on and go, and that and this and this and this makes that whatever. You know what I'm saying? And so I have a video on my other YouTube channel. It's called Frary Brand, 2 words, Frary Brand, okay? And I have this, it's called Planned in the 60s. And it is a man describing everything that they were going to do back in the 60s. And you can listen to the whole couple hours of video and then go, yeah, and shit, that happened, and then this happened, and they've done that, and look at all these accomplishments. They just check one thing after another off the list.
Well, that's just it. I mean,
yep.
If you're going to perpetrate like a fake paradigm, well, you got to introduce it slowly. It can't look like it's suddenly showing up, because then they're going to revolt. You got a bit of a reverse psychology. You have to have everything, all the components. They know, they've drafted the human condition and psyche from Plato's cave. Plato's cave was a real operation. They had the kids of slaves were property of the masters, and they said, you know what? Let's really find out about the human condition here. Let's lock up these youngins into a cave, shackle them, and then we'll just put a fire behind their heads, and we'll do a puppet show with shadows on the wall. We're going to find out what level they think that's the extent of their reality, and at what point they'll defend that reality from being challenged by the others that are chained up. I believe it happened. It's not just a parable and an allegory in philosophy that it's kind of like a branding spell they put on you when you take philosophy class, and you think this thing's a parable. This is how they found out about the human condition. So if you're going to perpetrate a fake reality, a fake creation, a fake paradigm, and why would you do that? So you can make servile little slaves, right? Well, then you're going to also know, okay, well, we got to watch out when one comes along and starts noticing this and that. Okay, so we got to start seeding this here before they get to that. And you do that for about 500 years, and everything's set up. And this is how you would control it. So now I'm asking you, we know what they're going to do. Now, I've told you in image control everything that's going to happen, and it has happened. I'm being marginalized. I'm not saying I want to be the leader here, but you better pick somebody, because they like chaos, so they can appoint a leader for you. And you might want to stick to people who are scholars and are sticking to the damning revolutionary facts that have been proven in 2015, as opposed to people, putting the cart before the horse. We didn't even go to Antarctica yet. So, I mean, where do we go now that we know that there's a weaponization smear campaign of the people involved here as being psycho? And I could see this going on here. I see it going on here. And there's a lot of people that are playing right into it who are not agents, who are not completely stable. There are people who are leading this movement to a certain degree, the domers, who have voices talking to them, and they think these people are Jesus. They think these energies are angels. There's people hearing voices in their head, and they are somewhat an influence on individuals that are coming into this revelation, into this information, into this debate. And as scholars...
And attacking the rest of us while it's happening.
Well, it's funny you just mentioned time travel, Laurie, but I'm thinking this place we live is, whoever made it, it's a magic box of tricks, and the term parallel universe has been used, and maybe these people that pull the strings on this patch of land that we live on, maybe they've got some means of seeing into the future and what's going to happen, and they can lay all these breadcrumb trails that you know about, because they know exactly what's going to happen, and they maybe even know the outcome of what's going to happen, because they can look into the future and see which way it's going to go, and maybe try and steer it in another direction if they don't like it.
Well, I think that's too much credit. I believe they're adapting to what they can see through text messages. The old days, it was the Jesuit in the closet getting the secrets from the whole town. You lied to who this week? You stole from who? I mean, that guy had it on everybody in the village, because everybody would go confess their sins of the week. They don't need Jesuits or priests. They got the internet. Every communication now for a movement or a protest, it's not that they know your thought that you're having now. They're adapting it to the minute that you put it down on a screen. And so what I see what's going on right now is the control mechanism is an adaptation mechanism based off seeing all communications.
That's
it's not
really
they're forecasting it. Sorry,
Yeah,
they're not.
I mean,
They're not. They don't. They didn't.
Matthew.
Watch the show Fringe, Lawrence. It's canceled now. It's over, but you can go on Netflix or some show like
And
that.
I don't think
and
they
watch
were
it.
expecting this, by
They
the way.
had parallel
Yeah.
universes in there. As a matter of fact, if you want to see what's going to happen, if you want to see the most real predictive programming ever, watch any show that J.J. Abrams creates, and it's pretty much, like the universal law of free will is being is being allowed by them putting it out there and showing you, this is what we're doing, this is how it really works, and then you all go, ha 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 ha, that's such cute fiction, and then you don't believe that it's real because it's couched as fiction, and then the next thing you know, a couple years later, like this show that I just watched last year's season of Person of Interest with, AI machines that are taking over the world. And I'm looking at it going, oh, they're just totally telling us what's next. I mean, if we don't stop it, this is what's coming next. And I have no reason not to believe it because it's already panned out to be that way on multiple occasions. It's like going in the Bible and reading end times prophecy. That's what they're basing it on.
Well, I think at the end of the day, that the reason.
Matthew, he just sent me a message, said my hotspot just got tapped out. Hold on.
Oh, I was going to say the reason they've been so successful is because they get us at such a early age anymore. It's really only the very young people that are rationally, skeptically scrutinizing the spinning globe model. And to me, it's now that we're rational adults looking at it again with fresh eyes. It obviously doesn't make sense, but that makes it pretty apparent to me why they've pushed it on the youngsters, younger and younger as the years go by, because it just makes it that much more difficult for people to come away from that paradigm, right?
Yeah, these young people are full on totally indoctrinated, the young people at this point, because as a Facebook admin of several groups, that is a very large missing group of people, is anybody under 25. And
Harry Potter.
I'm not calling them stupid by any stretch of the imagination, but they're fully indoctrinated at this point. Their critical thinking skills are pretty close to none.
Totally.
They're not being taught. I was taught critical thinking skills. I was taught to question everything. And I was never shut up, stop asking so many questions. I was one of those kind who's like, well, why does this? And somebody would calmly give me the answer. And if they didn't, I'd ask them again until they did. And I was encouraged to do that. But today, here, get your Game Boy and go at it.
Unbelievable. Harry Potter. They're all into the occult because of Harry Potter.
Well, and the YouTube, and the music videos and the music culture, that's all connected in there. Most of the young people under 25 are looking forward to H+. Do you know what H+ is? Human plus AI. That's the new short term. H+.
Oh, well, good. They're gonna get their run for their money with me.
Yeah, they're all waiting for their wearables and for their implant to make them smarter or stronger or more connected. Won't have to carry a phone around anymore. They'll just talk to people in their head, like those guys on the Person of Interest. They just tap the side of their ear and start talking to each other.
If I go on eBay to buy something or just look at it, and then I go onto my Facebook page and look at the news feed, the very same thing I'm looking at or something similar starts moving up the page, something I've just looked at. So they are gathering, that's just on your spending habits, they're gathering all this information. And you picked up on something, Matthew, I think when you were talking to Mark Sargent on the phone in that video that you did, you were talking about algorithms for something or other to shape things.
They have the algorithms of every communication. Like right now, they could voice to text this entire thing, and they could find out the psychological inclinations of Lori, and then they could take that and use that kind of algorithmic psychological template, and then study it, and then stem cell replicate it for AI, and then slowly piece together a brain that is a formidable adversary to the human mind, because it would be, it would have Wi-Fi. It would be able to access every YouTube video in its brain, and every, if they broke NSA, if they broke the American Constitution, well, then they could tap into all every bloody communication that's been recorded by the internet could go into the mind of an AI's brain, plus the web. So the only move it's not going to have is your next move, but it will have your patterns of inclination, and might be able to.
Absolutely. They've been knowing that for a long time.
Did you ever watch that TV series called Broken Mirror? And on one of them, the Prime Minister had to have sex with a pig on primetime television.
What?
Yeah, actually, you brought that up, Lawrence. How bizarre is that?
Wait, is this after Cameron or before Cameron?
Before Cameron. It was called Broken Mirror. But there was also another one in the show whereby this person had died, but they'd saved all his messages and everything he'd ever put on the computer, and they gathered all that information together to recreate all the thoughts of that person, to recreate another person who was a robot who was virtually the same. They just, they just took everything that was in his brain.
If you haven't seen those episodes of this show, you can go on YouTube and watch every episode. I'm pretty sure it's called Broken Mirror. But yeah, the Cameron pig. It wasn't Cameron, but it was the very high up in UK government.
Well, what's going on here is they're probably taunting Cameron and reminding Cameron, by the way, we could leak this information if you don't play puppet. And he did something that pissed somebody off in the House of Lords, and that came out. And I just find it almost humiliating, not so much for Cameron, because he chose that route in life, but I find it very humiliating that the citizens of the United Kingdom have as their leader a man who participated in such acts to get where he is.
Reality.
And that's what's humiliating about being a subject of the royal family, or a citizen of the Commonwealth, is that the leader of the big one, the United Kingdom, he puts his penis in the mouth of a dead pig. It's pretty creepy.
It's more than creepy.
This is the type of stuff that's going on in these secret fraternal societies and stuff like that. And let me tell you something. If I went to the Bohemian Grove or I was part of some Masonic temple, I would have had to go through that initiation. And let me tell you, I don't think I'd be saying this shit. They would have been putting pictures of me screwing partridges and, God knows what, all over the place, all over the net. Remember when you were with this? I was like, no, I'm a lone gunman, cookie cutter clean, stay out of trouble. People try to get me in little sex scandals, but just record me in debates about the money system and domers. But in the end, I'm pretty. They don't have anything on me. They don't have anything on me. So they could say I'm an actor. That's fine. I got to pay the bill because I'm a good actor. But I mean, they don't have anything on me. And I definitely, I didn't take the olive branch to go into the Hollywood industry. I bit that hand. I was offered that hand. I didn't take it. I'm a painter. I don't want to be. I'm a painter and a political scientist who wants to do independent, scholarly work on globalism. So I don't want to be known as some goofy character in some stupid Hollywood sitcom. I might do a film here and there because Todd Haynes is a very good artistic director, and Brian Jones had a very, very suspicious death that people claim, Mick Jagger and Keith Richards pushed him into the pool. So somebody wants me to play Brian Jones, who's one of the really good musicians of that day. No problem. Somebody wants me to play a mafioso British painter who's working with dirty cops controlling an entire town. I had my painting stolen by dirty cops in Montreal. You're darn right I'm going to play that role because it's going to expose dirty policemen. So, I mean, I'm kind of choosing what I do at this point. And they're not banging down my door since I said the world was not a ball and all your images are paintings. So, I'm definitely not. And I was offered big roles in other projects that I knew was basically to sabotage me exposing all this. They were like sci-fi projects. And I was like, I can't do that and say what I'm saying. And so, as much as people will use the limited amount of acting I've done with independent film to expose me as some sort of shill, you should see what I turned down.
Well, okay, so
That's all I wanted to say.
we
about the
beat
film.
up on a few people tonight, but we get beat up on ourselves, and I want to address what a lot of people find a little more than repulsive is the drama within Facebook and within the groups and on YouTube and so on and so forth. I don't know if there's a way to stop it, and I don't know if it should be stopped, because with regards to people, I don't know, pointing fingers at each other or whatever, we're at a place in just humankind in general where it's almost impossible to fully trust anyone unless you live with them, spend a lot of time with them, really know them for years. I mean, people cheat on their husbands and wives all the time. People steal money from their job they've been employed at for 25 years.
People lie.
Things change within personalities, within people. But to come into something like the Flat Earth movement and meet a bunch of people cold, don't have no idea anything about their past. Like, for example, sitting here, we have 5 people, okay? None of us knows anything about any of the rest of us beyond a year ago, okay? We don't know anybody's past. We don't know where they came from, where they were born, what their birthday is, what their telephone number was when they were 7. We don't know anything, okay? But we all feel one common denominator, and that is a responsibility to do the right thing in the Flat Earth movement. If we're real, I mean, if we truly are Flat Earthers and we truly do want to get to the bottom of this lie and then go forward from that, it isn't just exposing the lie. It's about changing the system that supports this lie. So I want each of you guys to just sort of tell me, and I want to start with Kristen, because Kristen's kind of fresh being attacked this week by some people who have attacked me in the past. I don't know that she wants to name any names. I don't think that's important, and I would probably advise against it since it's so fresh. But I want to know everybody's opinion on how to stop this kind of thing, if it should be stopped, or how do we express cleaning some house with some of these people who have been repeat offenders with regards to attacking those of us who are trying to do good work.
The scholarly work.
The scholarly work. Okay, we'll say that. Kristen, you on?
I'm on.
You feel up to that?
Can you hear me okay? If you can hear me okay, I'll do what I can to answer.
Yeah. Okay.
I've got to stay off camera, though, because it is running pretty hot. It's just a lot of drag.
Okay, that's fine.
As long as you can hear me okay. It's so yeah, this it's pretty disheartening, you know. I mean, I've been hearing for months about other people getting attacked, and it's made me want to pull back, and that's why nobody has seen any videos from me so far. Simple as that. I mean, I had all the best intentions to put out videos months ago, and I've gotten just waylaid by hearing all of the attacks happening, especially to the women. You know, we see so few women coming along, and then to have them all kind of slandered is really not. It doesn't encourage other women, and I'm always inspired when I do see a new.
I think that's
Pardon?
part of the operation, is to keep women out of this, because women hold the key to changing the world. Men had their run with it, and not only did they screw it up and they're taking us to war, they also lied about the shape of it. So this is the time for women to get involved in this movement. I implore it, and it's so sad to see the way that the men talk to each other on some of these boards. They're not anybody I would bring into a debate. There's no credibility with quite a few people here. Either their style, the way they bully each other, and the few women that do come in, the way they kind of attack them is indicative of let's keep these women out of this one, because they could inherit the earth.
Well, it's interesting because ironically, then I've been attacked I've been accused of attacking these other women, which hasn't happened at all, but that's been what I've been accused of, and so I've been threatened if I speak about certain people, and that my reputation will be on Facebook destroyed and in the Flat Earth movement. And I'm just going, wow, really? So so somebody gets to decide whether I get to say what I can say about the Flat Earth to people that helps people come on board with it in truth and just keeping with the facts. And that's all I'm encouraging, and to keep asking questions about the other things that we can't figure out yet. And I don't understand how the moment that I've made it very clear I won't be taking sides, I won't be picking a camp. I'm just on my own here. There's no reason. I mean, I want us to all work together, of course, but I have no reason to do this kind of. We're not on a. That series I think about Survivor. Just like the whole. I've never really watched it, but the whole alliances thing that happens, and just the kind of mentality that show speaks to in America. It's not really becoming of us what they show, and it doesn't. This is the kind of thing I just really couldn't have imagined. I've never been involved personally in one of these movements before, but I've been around long enough watching 9/11 and other things to see what's gone on with all the infighting and division in those movements from a distance, just as a total outsider. I mean, I literally never made a comment on a YouTube video in 5 years of watching YouTube videos about all kinds of conspiratorial subjects until the Flat Earth, because finally I had questions that I needed answers to, and I got almost no response from people, prominent Flat Earthers that I put out questions to. One or two did reply, which I appreciate, but this has all been very eye-opening to just a person who felt very called and compelled to get involved, as apparently all of us have. I trust that everybody here on this call is a real person. I have no reason to think otherwise, and I'll just say right now, I have told anybody who's asked me about my name, because people have already asked me, which is why I touched on it earlier, that I chose a different last name to do this, and I will never lie to anybody who asks me about it. And since people again have already asked, I'm just going to say it right now. I have no reason to hide that I changed my name, and I don't care what people think about it. It's what I did to just kind of protect family members who maybe weren't ready to have their Earth reality shattered just yet. I hadn't told them yet. I wasn't ready to fully come out as a Flat Earther yet. I'm only just now speaking to a couple of key family members, and so people, but I still had to do what I had to do to try to reach an audience if I could, and say what I could about it, and see how people responded, because I felt this was important enough that as many people would be called to step up to do this would follow through with that calling and just go with it, because there's a reason. I think certain people have been called to this, and I'm just not willing to fight it. It's been too big of a thing for me to ignore. I couldn't just leave it alone. And I have finally made a couple curvature test videos and that I've been planning, and they're different, and I hope people really enjoy them. And as long as I can actually get them uploaded, you'll be seeing them really soon. And this is just, I'm glad that's happening. I've got a lot of other videos planned, I don't
Krista,
know
what's
how many people will ever see them, but I just want to say real quick, the last thing is I'm ready to walk away from Facebook any minute that I have to, and I've been prepared for that all along. I don't need Facebook, and let me tell you, the whole thing with this is we need to get offline. And this is something that Matthew and I have been talking about because he agrees, he feels the same, and he's always taken those approaches all along with the way that he's presented this. It's been about this person-to-person contact, and I think that's what we need to get back to, because this this Facebook thing is an echo chamber. I've found out on the community page format that they are keeping me from reaching much of a new audience with their whole advertising scam. Let's not be fooled about what's really getting done there.
Yeah,
There's a lot of time and energy is being wasted. We need to get out and talk to people about the lack of curvature, about the irrefutable proof that
Lonnie
nobody
Layola
has been able to discredit yet.
Lonnie's
Thank you,
doing
Kristen.
that.
Sorry, go on.
Lonnie's doing that with a sign out on the street. I'm ready to do a show. I don't know.
Great.
I've had about 70 people approach me outside of my own personal schedule to do like a flat Earth perception show in their town. 70 people in the last year since I put up this crazy notion, and like no one's put it together. I mean, so I don't know what's going on. I mean, I get attacked when I even put like a post for a shirt. I mean, I have one shirt that's gone missing. I mean, I haven't even. I've maybe sent out 30 shirts, and I have one that's already missing en route towards Greece. I don't know where it is. And there was a post office worker who went nuts at Christmas, and he threw out all the Christmas gifts. I don't know if he saw my shirt and he went nuts. He weaponized, but globalists went kabonkers. But yeah, this thing's got to go offline. And anyways, go on. I'm just concerned more about. I would like to see the globalists throw the first punch at a flat earther than some fake false flag where there's somebody who's like doing something wrong, which I think is what they're gonna try to set us up for. And I'm trying to figure out, you've got to start, because Thomas Sheridan might be an insider, or he might be watching this like that. Either way, he might be under a spell or the whatnot. What he says is of concern, and has been my concern since day one. How will people react to this? Who's gonna be in charge of this information? And we have to watch out for somebody trying to radicalize this. And I see that people on the Dome side have, with the way they comport themselves and conduct themselves, there's a violent, dogmatic zealotry that is as dangerous as a globalist, or as dangerous as a Muslim fanatic, or anybody who's a fanatic. And it's stick to the facts.
Well, Matthew, if you remember correctly, months and months ago, when this character named Jake Blastard came on the scene, and that was probably one of the early attack times that happened to me, because I was asked behind the scenes to let this guy in the groups, to let this guy, have a platform, have a soapbox, and for those who never, he was cut off at the knees before he ever got any traction, and I partially take responsibility for that, because the whole plot that this guy had was, this whole thing is not going to go easily. We're going to have to militarize it, sort of, and we're going to have to, create some tactics that is going to get us recognized, because, we're just not going to be able to get any traction just being a bunch of flat earth sheeple. And, one of the things that I thought right off the bat is here's one of those characters who's going to come in and weaponize, using the term, the flat earth movement, by making it radical, making it, in other words, these kind of guys, you're entitled to your flat earth beliefs, and that's just fine, but your camp is going to have to stay way over there on the perimeter. It can't be in the middle of our camp. And I don't even actually want it next door. I don't even want to see your fire burning, okay? And so, yet, in having said that, in having said, no, there's no room for Jake Blastards with your blood-dripping videos and your black and red motif and all that stuff, I was attacked for trying to keep him out. And so be it. I was prepared to, carry that weight, and I'm glad I did what I did. But with regards to the kinds of attacks that people like Kristen got this week, and I've been made aware of some of the tactics. I've heard these same tactics over and over again.
And these people are not doing anything.
Thuggery.
They're not. It's like union tactics.
It's pure and simple thuggery, and it reminded me of, years ago, I used to be a commercial general contractor, and one of the primary things I did was rehabbing old buildings, gutting them out and bringing them back to new. And I bought my own buildings, I got my own permits, I got my own licenses, and I proceeded with, doing my work. And I get visited by the building trades union head, and he comes walking into my building that's permitted, and he's got these two big thugs behind him, these two young, big, strapping guys. And, he wants to know who the GC on this job is, which is short for general contractor. And I said, I am. And I didn't say, I am. I said, I am. And he proceeds to tell me that I need to hire union labor. And I said, no, I don't think so. I'm hiring my own friends and people that I know. And I own this building, so I'm entitled to do the work myself. So you just guys go away. Well, we're going to set up a strike, out in front and post people and put a strike line out here. And I said, be my guest. I'll come in the back door. And he said, this is right on Main Street. You can't do this. This town can't have this. And I said, well, deal with it, because this is what I'm doing. And, this kind of practice is what I feel like is happening in the flat earth with these people who call people's mother on the phone and say, I'm going to hurt your son with a baseball bat. This has happened. This stuff has happened. And, it makes me wonder, not only, are we doing ourselves any good by trying to win people over in these Facebook groups and so on, 1 or 2 or 10 or 20 at a time, or if we, like you say, we need to take it offline and we need to make them come find us. We're putting it all out there.
What if the internet gets taken down because of it? What do? You don't have your Facebook.
You have no plan. You have to start from scratch.
You have to start figuring out so why don't you pretend now? How would you start to go affect conversation at a cocktail party or do a show? Or, if you need help doing a show or party, call up my team. We got a whole situation set up, and then we'll come into your town and we'll convince them. I mean, that's the way they don't want it to go.
Like a speakers bureau, for example, things like that. There's no reason why we couldn't have, I get asked to go on debate formats all the time or go on radio show interviews with people, and I'm not interested by myself. Not that I can't handle it, but that I know how easily they can put roadblocks in front of you and trip you and make you look like Howdy Doody. And so I am not interested in doing that. Others are. And if they are good at it, fine. But to put together a speakers bureau where, if some school or organization is willing, even for shits and giggles, to invite us to come and talk, we should be prepared to do that.
Well, it's almost going Amish. Like, you got to create your own community, because it's like, it just seems like since I, blew the whistle on French television, it's been downhill. And like for me, like doing like there's no comedy club. I gotta sneak in. Forget it. They're all connected. And I'm a very efficient comedian with big target topics. And it's just amazing with somebody with my portfolio and my experience and like doing the circuit in New York City and all this stuff, and the type of people that they enjoy me in the back row, like, you know, people like Louis C.K. and Mitch Hedberg. I work with all these guys, you know, like Bill Burr and Patrice O'Neill. God bless their souls, a lot of them. And even out in the UK. And it's like persona non grata since I started talking about this. And it's just, we might have to create situations where we're doing our own festival, we're doing our own convention, we're doing our own party, our own picnic. So, I mean, the idea is that people have to become their own producers. We have to create an alternate reality. You
Well,
can
that's
dream about a
absolutely
parallel world, and you
because
can
I
dream about
know
a parallel reality, but why don't you just create one right in the smack of the middle of their fake reality?
Well, of course, because look at all of the times that I can already count where I felt like I trusted someone who
Online.
comes to me in my inbox and starts a conversation with me, and I start conversing with them, and they'll ask a question or they'll, yuck it up, and then the next thing you know, my posts are being in my inbox, and my messages are being posted screen captures out on some secret group over here of people who, as Flat Earth and we all hate Lori.
And that's what can happen online. You could be, when you're in charge of a show or
that thing about trusting people. Let me be the first to warn you if you haven't been warned before or haven't figured this out yet. Don't go having confidential conversations with anyone in your inbox about your personal stuff that you wouldn't want posted right out on the wall of any Flat Earth group or any other group, but Flat Earth groups for sure, because this is psychological warfare going on behind the scenes, and people are not only just getting attacked emotionally. I haven't heard of any physical attacks yet. Wouldn't surprise me if there were. That Lonnie Liola guy got ran over by a car or something. But the fact of the matter is that there are agents working for organizations all across the world, not just in the U.S., and I'm talking about all the classics, whether it's MI6 in one country or the CIA in our country or the Mossad in Israel. I don't know, but I do know that there's multiple levels of people getting paid to collect evidence, to collect information, to set up psychological psyops on people. So just be very careful in the future to choose carefully who you have conversations with off the page, I guess you would call it. So we have about 10 minutes before we need to wrap this up. And so wanted to see who wanted to have closing thoughts. We haven't heard a lot from Jonathan tonight or from Lawrence, and I don't know if it's not that you didn't have anything much to add or whether you couldn't get a word in edgewise, but regardless, you have the floor.
No, I had a great time just listening and hanging out with you guys. It's always a pleasure. I would add a couple things in terms of the unions and the team, like the Teamsters unions and those sort of guys were very much connected right along with the mafia as well as the Roman Catholic Church and by extension the Jesuits. So you got this whole sort of matrix of secret societies that appear to be separate entities, but behind the scenes they're all sort of working in conjunction towards the same goal. And even members of those different organizations at the lower levels may not even know there's any sort of connection. And so, there are different faces to this thing that we're sort of fighting against. And to me, I just sort of, what makes me, one of my pet peeves, what I get upset about is when people try to liken this to some bizarre, weird conspiracy theory, because it's not. It's just the simple, obvious truth, and the weird, bizarre conspiracy theory is the spinning globe Earth. So, I think it's important that we stick to the facts and not try to push an enclosed system, because to me, that's the opposite of what the truth is. I don't think it's enclosed at all. And it seems like we all sort of agree on that. Even Mark Sargent would appear to agree that there's no curvature, but it's like pulling teeth trying to get him to talk about it. So at least, I'll commend him on that. Other than that, I'm working on a new video, so just be on the lookout for that in the next couple of days. And hope you guys have a safe and happy and perpendicular to the horizon New Year.
Excellent. Happy 2016 to you, Jonathan.
Jonathan.
Lawrence, closing
Yep,
thoughts?
it's an exciting time to be alive. Never before has anything come along like this. I mean, people must have had such mundane lives in the past, but this is like opening a fresh newspaper every day with brand new news in. And, I think we've got a big magic box of tricks here, and people are going to be shocked when they find out what it's really like. If you go on any Google Maps, Matthew, go on any Google Maps and zoom out to a world view, and that is where I think we live. And your boundaries beyond Antarctica may well be some other lands out there, but from left to right, this is what you're looking at. Mm-hmm. This is where we are. It's a wallpaper Earth, and somebody's going to prove it sooner or later. Maybe Tiger Dan will do it with his map, when he finds out that this circular map isn't going to work, and he gets a big square one, and it comes out, and I can't wait for his next video, even if it's to say that he can't make any further progress. But these are exciting times, because we're on the cusp of the meaning of life and what it's all about. And where the hell are we? Where the hell are we? What's above? What's below? What's to the sides? We need to know what it is, and once you've found out that it's not what you've been told, then till the day we die, we're going to be curious about where we are. And 2016 is probably going to be a very long year.
Yeah.
Kristen, you wanna put out a couple of last thoughts? We have 5 minutes.
Okay, great. I was really happy to join in today and listen to the discussion with everyone. Really happy Matthew could join us. And, there's been so many things I would have loved to have comment on. So many great things were covered today. And gosh, I'm sorry I wasn't able to dig in on what you were kind of asking me initially to zero in on, because we'd have to kind of dig in a little bit there, and I knew we had so many other things to talk about today, so I couldn't really focus at that point to start taking it up. But I want to touch on again this just quick discovery of this Google Map issue, and why would they be using the Mercator map when you open the Google Map, when that's showing us a scale ruler legend down in the corner that obviously adjusts as we zoom in, right? So that you're always supposed to be able to use that little ruler in the corner. And we're using Google Maps for driving distances and to plan our driving route, right? So even when I zoom into Greenland, which appears because they're using the standard Mercator map as the Google map, so it appears roughly the same size as Africa, right? When we zoom into it, it doesn't suddenly shrink down to 1/14th the size of Africa like they tell us it is. So what's going on here? Okay, these are the things I'm starting to dig into. And again, I encourage people to check out the page if you just want to read point by point what I'm putting together so far, and I couldn't cover all the points in the couple posts so far about this Google map, Mercator map, and about also the question about time zones. How do we, I lost the call at that point when you were talking about, time travel, but this international dateline question is still something we need to figure out. How does the sun move in equidistant segments across the sky over 24 hours, but then how does it suddenly jump? What is it, 12 hours? I'm not clear at the international dateline to be in the
I have my reservations about throwing that cart in front of the horse.
I know.
The time lapse that I've accounted for from Alaska and from Kuujjuaq is a circular orbit of the sun around what we call the northern Arctic.
Okay, good. I was hoping we'd touch on that with Lawrence today.
Yeah, well, this is where we'll defer is on the maps. I'll go with the rudimentary right now function of the azimuthal, but I don't believe it's a 360-degree ice wall. I believe there's openings, waterway openings.
We're definitely going to have to do this again and keep this dialogue going and this brainstorming, because I think we kind of hit upon a magical combination here of ideas and discussion tonight. And Matt, you have like just a minute, and then we'll have to wrap it up. Do you have?
I think what we really need to, what people need to do coming into this, people who've been watching this, and what's very interesting is I'm talking to a guy who's been watching me, and he's not a gentleman that wants to put himself in the public, but he's been aware of this since 2012, and he's watched how my treatise I started here is being pushed to the side for this quackery, and he says this is an operation. You can check out his stuff, Rune Painter, Jeff, but he's kind of interesting because there's this whole group, Jeff Stewart, Flat Earth Humorist, there's this group of people that have been following me for a long time who are not looking for the limelight, but they're forced by this because they're like, Jesus, what's going on here? There's an operation unfolding in this man's dissertation that is just discrediting all of his life's work, and they're getting involved. So there's people that have been watching what I'm doing since 2011 who are now going to start coming out of the woodworks, and I encourage more of these people. These are first waivers. These are people that have been like there since it was started, and they've been on the fence watching this like a show, and then they're like, I'm like imploring these people also to get involved online and offline, because they've watched this operation come in here and take over meaty facts, and then the UK Daily Express can dismiss the whole thing with this fake flat earth, which is what the fake flat earth society in London, England is doing, and they formed after I took out the NASA channel. I told my girlfriend at the time, I said, look at this. I took out the NASA channel. They're taking out the flat earth. They're like, oh, you want to take out our moniker? We're going to take out yours. Right. And these guys, I had a friend of mine from my past just get a hold of me on the internet. He said, Matt, I just thought of you. I was in Banff at the convention center, and the Flat Earth Society was next door. I'm like, where do they get their money? I mean, they don't talk about any of us, or they talk about us like tongue-in-cheek, like a joke. They got money out of London, England, this Flat Earth Society thing, to take out a room at the Banff Convention Center in Lake Louise. I mean, This is what we're dealing with here, okay, folks? So, I implore people from the past that might have been watching me to come forward and then join this whole thing online, have fun with it, and also let's focus on the the damning revelation or ramification that there is zero curvature when you apply the curvature math formula to the ground with an optic at a landmark at a distance. I got to go. I got a bit of a
we got to wrap it. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Matt. Thank you, Kristen. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you, Lawrence. It's been awesome, and I can't wait to do it again. And we'll do it again next week on Sunday night, just as always. And we'll see you then. And thank you so much for joining us. And keep it flat. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night. Thank you.